I taste pennies and chalk. That's the first thing I register. Not the pain, not the noise. Just the thick, suffocating taste of pulverized concrete coating my tongue, packing the back of my throat. I spit, but there's no saliva left, just dry grit falling from my lips onto the carpet. Carpet. That's wrong. I was standing by the drafting table a second ago. Now I'm on my hands and knees, staring at the grey commercial weave of my office floor. My ears are ringing, a high, continuous pitch that drowns out everything else. I shake my head, trying to clear it, and that's when the world snaps back into focus. The ringing isn't just in my head. It's the sound of tearing metal. The building, 14 stories of reinforced steel and glass in downtown Seattle, is screaming. Lily! The name rasps out of my throat, barely a whisper. I look up. My desk is gone. Not moved, gone. The entire exterior wall of my office is missing. Where there used to be floor-to-ceiling windows looking out over Elliott Bay, there is now just jagged, twisted rebar and open air. Papers are swirling out into the grey sky like panicked birds. The drafting table is pinned under a massive slab of dropped ceiling. My coffee mug, the stupid one Lily bought me for Father's Day that says, "World's Okayest Architect," is shattered into a dozen ceramic shards inches from my hand. Memory hits me like a physical blow. The phone call. I was on the phone with her. Dad, the light rail is delayed again. I'm stuck at Pioneer Square. Just wait it out, Lil. Grab a coffee. I'll come get you if it's more than 20 minutes. Fine. But you owe me. And then the P-wave hit. A sudden, violent upward jolt that lifted me off my feet. No warning tremor. No gentle rattling of the blinds. Just a brutal uppercut from the earth. The phone slipped from my hand. Then came the S-wave, the rolling, tearing horizontal violence that whipped the high-rise back and forth until the structural limits failed. I scramble backward, away from the sheer drop where my window used to be. My hands are shaking. Left leg throbs, but it bears weight. I stand up, stumbling like a drunk, using a filing cabinet to steady myself. The floor is slanted. An aggressive, sickening 15-degree tilt toward the street. Buildings aren't supposed to tilt. If they tilt, the core is compromised. I look around the office. Sarah. David. Silence. The emergency sprinklers aren't on, which means the water mains are severed. The power is completely dead. I limp out into the hallway. The fluorescent light fixtures hang by exposed wires. Drywall dust hangs in the air like thick fog. Down the hall, near the elevator banks, a body. David from accounting. He's pinned beneath a massive structural beam that snapped clean through the drywall. I don't need to check for a pulse. The angle of his chest. You don't survive that. I swallow the bile rising in my throat. Keep moving. You can't help him. You have to find Lily. Pioneer Square. Underground. The worst possible place to be during a catastrophic seismic event. I reach the stairwell door. It's warped, jammed hard into the frame. Adrenaline, cold and pure, floods my system. I grab the handle, plant my boot on the wall, and pull. My shoulder pops. Muscles tear. I don't care. I pull harder, letting out a guttural sound that doesn't even feel like it belongs to me. The metal groans, bends, and the door pops open, throwing me backward onto the slanted floor. I scramble up and dive into the stairwell. It's dark in here, lit only by the faint, dust-choked daylight bleeding through a crack in the concrete wall. 14 flights down. I start moving. The descent is a blur of survival. Fourth floor is completely blocked by a collapsed landing. I have to climb over the railing, dangling over the dark shaft for a terrifying 3 seconds, before dropping onto the third-floor landing. My hands are slick with sweat and blood. I don't know whose blood. Second floor. The smell hits me. Ruptured gas lines, raw sewage, and the sharp, metallic tang of fresh blood. Ground floor. The lobby. I push through the heavy fire doors and step out into what used to be a grand atrium. The glass ceiling is gone, leaving a jagged halo of framework. The marble floor is buckled, pushed up into a miniature mountain range. Water from a shattered decorative fountain is flooding the floor, mixing with dust to create a thick, grey sludge. I step out through the hollow frame of the revolving doors and onto 4th Avenue. The breath leaves my lungs. I just stop. Seattle is gone. I don't mean damaged. I don't mean ruined. I mean unrecognizable. To the west, the viaduct is a crumpled ribbon of concrete, flattened onto the streets below. Office towers lean against each other like exhausted giants. A massive fire is already raging a few blocks north, thick black smoke churning into the overcast sky. But it's not the fallen buildings that make my knees weak. It's the street itself. 4th Avenue is split in two. A massive fissure, maybe 40 feet across, runs straight down the center of the asphalt, swallowing cars, buses, and entire sidewalks. It's not just a crack. I walk to the edge, my boots crunching on shattered glass, and look down. It's dark, pitch black. I can't see the bottom. It just keeps going, a ragged tear into the crust of the earth. The smell coming up from it isn't sewage or gas. It's old, stagnant, like an ancient sealed tomb cracked open for the first time in a million years. Wet stone, sulphur, and something faintly sweet and rotting. A siren wails in the distance, a lonely, pathetic sound against the sheer scale of the destruction. There are people out here, covered in grey dust, looking like ghosts. A woman in a torn business suit is sitting on the curb, holding a briefcase, just staring at a crushed Prius. A man is screaming a name over and over near the edge of the chasm. Nobody is helping anyone. Everyone is in deep, paralyzing shock. Not me. I have a destination. Pioneer Square is maybe 10 blocks south. 10 blocks of this. I check my pockets. Wallet, keys, phone. I pull the phone out. Screen is heavily cracked, but it turns on. No service. Of course. Cell towers are either down or overloaded. I shove it back into my pocket. I need a weapon, a tool, something. I scan the wreckage around me. Next to a collapsed bus stop, there's a length of steel rebar, jagged on one end, heavy, about 3 feet long. I pick it up. The weight feels good in my hand. Anchoring. I start walking south. The air is thick, hard to breathe. I tear a strip of fabric from the hem of my button-down shirt and tie it around my face like a bandana. Every step is an obstacle course. I climb over crushed sedans, navigate around massive slabs of fallen masonry, step over things I try very hard not to look at too closely. The city groans. Aftershocks. Every few minutes, the ground trembles, sending fresh showers of glass and concrete raining down from the wounded skyscrapers above. Every time it happens, the survivors in the street scream and cower. I just widen my stance and keep my eyes up. Architecture taught me how buildings stand. It also taught me how they fall. I stay clear of the overhangs. I watch the load-bearing pillars. 5 blocks down. The sky is getting darker. Not just from the smoke, but the time. It was 4:15 p.m. when the quake hit. Sunset in October is early. It's going to be dark soon. A cold wind picks up, blowing in from the Puget Sound, carrying the smell of the ocean mixed with burning plastic. I reach the intersection of 4th and Madison. The fissure here is even wider, maybe 60 feet across. The public library to my left is partially collapsed, its iconic glass lattice twisted and shattered. That's when I hear it. It doesn't come from the buildings. It doesn't come from the terrified survivors on the street. It comes from below, from the chasm. I stop, grip the rebar tighter. It's a sound I've never heard before. A deep, resonant clicking, like two massive stones being struck together, but wet. Clack, 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 clack. It echoes up from the abyss, distorted by the depth, but undeniably loud. A few other survivors near the edge hear it too. A man in a high-vis vest stops, trying to pry open a crushed car door, and looks down into the dark. "Hello," he yells, his voice cracking. "Is someone down there? We can't reach you. Hold on." Clack, clack, clack. Hisses. A sound follows the clicking. A long, drawn-out exhalation that sounds like a punctured tire, but layered with a guttural, organic vibration. It makes the hair on my arms stand up. Every primal instinct buried in my DNA, the ancient alarms inherited from ancestors who huddled in caves, suddenly goes off all at once. Run. "Hey!" I shout at the man in the vest. "Step away from the edge. Step back." He looks at me, confused. "There's someone down there. I can hear them." He leans further over the jagged asphalt lip, peering into the black. "Hey! Can you see my hand?" A shadow detaches itself from the darkness below. It happens so fast my brain struggles to process the physics of it. Something massive, pale, the color of dirty ivory, shoots up from the vertical wall of the chasm. It moves with a scuttling, terrifying speed, limbs finding purchase in the sheer dirt and rock. Before the man can even pull his head back, a limb hooks over the edge of the asphalt. It's not a hand. It's a scythe of bone and hardened chitin, ending in a point the size of a railroad spike. The man freezes. The scythe sweeps sideways. It takes him at the knees. The sound of the impact is a sickening crunch. The man doesn't even have time to scream before a second limb reaches up, grabs him by the high-vis vest, and violently jerks him forward. He disappears over the edge. A second later, a wet tear echoes up from the dark, followed by a chorus of overlapping, frenzied clicking. Clack, 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 clack. I back up. Slowly. My boots slide on the dusty concrete. I can't breathe. My chest feels banded in iron. Another pale limb reaches over the edge. Then another. A head pulls itself up over the broken asphalt. It's the size of a motorcycle. No eyes. Just a smooth, pale, armored dome, sloping down into a maw that is completely wrong. It doesn't open like a jaw. It splits vertically, revealing rows of translucent, needle-like teeth, dripping with fresh, red blood. It has no ears, but the side of its head is covered in a series of deep, fleshy slits that pulse and flare. It climbs entirely out of the fissure. It stands on 4 multi-jointed legs, its body low to the ground, heavily plated like some monstrous subterranean insect, but with the raw muscularity of a vertebrate predator. It has to weigh 1,000 pounds. It stands dead still on the street. It doesn't look around. It can't. The fleshy slits on its head flare wide. 10 yards away, a woman drops a piece of metal she was holding. It clatters loudly on the street. The creature's head snaps toward the sound with terrifying precision. It doesn't roar. It just lunges. It clears the 10 yards in a single, fluid bound, pinning the woman to the ground. She screams, a high, piercing sound of pure terror. The creature's vertically split jaw opens wide and snaps shut. The screaming stops abruptly. Complete silence falls over the intersection, save for the wet sounds of tearing flesh and the crunching of bone. The few survivors left on the street are frozen in horror. And then, from the depths of the chasm, comes a sound that drains whatever blood is left in my face. More clicking. Dozens of them. Hundreds of them. Echoing up the walls of the abyss, growing louder by the second. The sun finally dips below the horizon, casting the ruined city into shadow. The streetlights are dead. The only light comes from the distant fires. They are coming up. I turn my back on the creature feeding on the woman. I don't run. Running makes noise. I walk, fast and light, keeping to the shadows of the collapsed buildings, my rebar gripped so tight my knuckles are white. Pioneer Square. I have to get to Pioneer Square. I have to get Lily out of the ground before these things flood the tunnels. I step over a pile of rubble and slip into a narrow alleyway just as the first wave of them crests the edge of the fissure, their pale armor glowing sickly in the firelight. The earthquake didn't destroy Seattle. It just opened the door. The alley is a canyon of brick and shadows, choked with the detritus of a dead city. Overturned dumpsters, shattered fire escapes, and piles of fallen masonry block the path forward. I press my back against the cold, rough surface of the brick wall and force myself to stop. I need to get my breathing under control. Right now, it sounds like a bellows in my own ears. Inhale through the nose. Hold for 3. Exhale through the mouth. The therapist Lily made me see after her mom died taught me that. It was supposed to help with the panic attacks. It feels almost comical to use it now, hiding in the dark while monsters from the center of the earth eat my neighbors. But it works. My heart rate drops from a frantic flutter to a heavy, rhythmic thud. I close my eyes and just listen. The soundscape of Seattle has completely transformed. Gone is the low, constant hum of traffic, the hum of the viaduct, the chatter of pedestrians. Now, the city is a symphony of structural death. I can hear the high-pitched groan of stressed steel rebar fighting gravity a block over. I can hear the crackle of distant fires consuming dry drywall and timber. And underneath it all, that wet, resonant clicking. Clack, clack, clack. It's coming from the main street I just left. It's not mindless noise. It has a cadence to it. A rhythm. They're communicating, or echolocating, or maybe both. Like bats in a cave, but scaled up to apex predators. I open my eyes and look down at my feet. The alley floor is a minefield of broken glass, loose bricks, and crumpled metal. Every step I take could be a death sentence. I adjust my grip on the rebar, slick with my own sweat, and begin to move. Heel to toe. Roll the weight forward. Slowly. I learned how to walk like this hunting elk in the Cascades with my dad when I was a teenager. You don't step on the forest floor. You press into it. You feel for snapping twigs before you commit your full weight. Here, the twigs are shards of safety glass and jagged concrete. I make it maybe 50 feet before I have to stop again. A massive commercial air conditioning unit has fallen from the roof of the adjacent building, completely blocking the narrow passage. It's a box of crumpled sheet metal and copper coils, wedged tight between the brick walls. I can't go back. Going back means facing the open street. I have to go over. I reach out, my leatherwork gloves scraping softly against the dented metal of the AC unit. I find a handhold on a bent ventilation louver. I pull myself up. The metal groans. A sharp, high squeal of stressed aluminum. I freeze. My muscles lock tight. Out on the street, the clicking stops. Instantly, a heavy, suffocating silence falls over the block. Even the fires seem to burn quieter. They heard it. I don't breathe. I don't blink. I am draped over the top of the AC unit, one leg dangling, clutching my rebar, exposed to the pale moonlight filtering through the smoke. From the mouth of the alley, a shadow detaches itself. One of them glides into the narrow passage. Glides is the only word for it. Despite its massive size, its multi-jointed legs move with a terrifying, liquid grace. The pale armor plates covering its back shift and slide over each other with a sound like grinding porcelain. It pauses about 30 feet away from me. Its head, that eyeless, sloping dome, sweeps back and forth. The fleshy, gill-like slits along its jawline are flared wide, pulsing rapidly. The inside of those slits is a raw, deep crimson, wet and glistening. It's hunting the sound. A rat, terrified and displaced by the quake, darts out from behind a crushed garbage can near the creature's front legs. Its tiny claws make a faint scratch on the pavement. The creature doesn't even look down. One of its scythe-like front limbs simply snaps out. There's a wet thwack, and the rat is gone, impaled on the end of a bone spike the size of a hunting knife. The creature brings the limb up to its vertically split jaw, sliding the rat off the spike and swallowing it whole. It doesn't chew. It just consumes. Then, it lowers its head until it is inches from the ground. I watch in horrified fascination as the creature stands perfectly still. It's not listening anymore. It's feeling. It is using the ground itself. The armor on its legs is pressing into the asphalt, picking up the microscopic vibrations of the ruined city. It's not just hearing. It's seismology. They are living seismographs. My left leg, the one hanging off the AC unit, starts to tremble from the strain of holding the awkward position. A muscle spasm twitches in my thigh. I grit my teeth so hard my jaw aches, forcing the muscle to stay still. If I drop my boot, if I scrape the brick, it will feel it. Seconds stretch into hours. The creature stays low, reading the earth. Finally, seemingly satisfied that the alley is empty, it turns with a sharp, insectoid pivot and glides back out into the main street. I wait a full minute after the clicking fades before I pull my other leg up and over the AC unit. I slide down the other side, my boots making a soft, muffled thump against a pile of discarded cardboard. I lean against the brick, exhaling a breath I feel like I've been holding for an eternity. My mind immediately goes to Lily. "You always do this, Dad. You always put the firm first." That was our fight this morning. She wanted me to drive her to school, to listen to her practice her debate speech. I had a client meeting with the developers for the new waterfront high-rise. I told her to take the light rail. I handed her a $20 bill and told her I'd make it up to her this weekend. I close my eyes, the memory twisting like a knife in my gut. I'm a structural engineer. I spend my life calculating stress loads, tensile strength, and failure points. I'm supposed to know when things are going to break. But I never saw this coming. None of us did. Pioneer Square Transit Station. It's a deep-bore tunnel, built to withstand massive seismic events. The concrete is thick, the rebar is dense. If the initial magnitude 9.8 didn't pancake the roof, she survived the quake. I know she did. She's smart. She would have tucked under the reinforced seating or braced in a load-bearing doorway. But if these creatures came from deep underground, if those fissures cracked open the bedrock beneath the city, the transit tunnels are nothing but a pre-packaged buffet, a subterranean maze with no exits. I push off the wall. I have to move faster. I reach the end of the alley and peer out into the open. I'm at the edge of the historic district now. The architecture shifts from modern glass and steel to old red brick and Romanesque arches. Or, at least, it used to. James Street is a graveyard. A massive sinkhole has swallowed the entire intersection, dragging a city bus down into the crater. Its rear wheels are pointing toward the sky, spinning lazily in the wind. The streetlights are dead, but a few cars still have their headlights on, cutting erratic, dusty beams through the gloom. There are 3 of them out there. 2 are smaller, maybe the size of large bears, moving low to the ground, sniffing at the wreckage of a collapsed coffee shop. The 3rd is massive. An absolute leviathan. It's perched on top of the overturned city bus. I watch as the large one systematically peels the metal roof off the bus. It uses its front sides like industrial can openers, tearing the thick steel with horrifying ease. It's looking for people trapped inside. I can hear the muffled, desperate screams coming from within the metal shell. I can't help them. The realization tastes like ash, but it's true. If I step out there, I die, and then Lily dies alone in the dark. I need to cross James Street to get to the station entrance at Pioneer Square. The open ground is maybe 100 feet. With those 3 out there, 100 feet might as well be 100 miles. I need a distraction. I look around the mouth of the alley. At my feet is a chunk of decorative masonry, a heavy gargoyle head snapped off a nearby building. It weighs maybe 20 pounds. Heavy enough to make a massive sound. I pick it up, cradling it against my chest. I step back into the alley, giving myself room to throw. To my left, about 200 yards down James Street, is a high-end electronics store. Its massive plate glass storefront is somehow miraculously intact, glowing faintly with the reflection of the fires. I take a deep breath. Calculate the arc. The weight. I step forward and heave the stone gargoyle head with everything I have. My bad shoulder screams in protest, a tearing sensation radiating down my back, but the stone flies true. It arcs high over the street, sailing past the overturned bus, and crashes dead center into the electronics store window. Crash, tinkle, smash. The sound is deafening in the quiet city. A cascading waterfall of heavy glass shattering onto the pavement. All 3 creatures react instantly. The 2 smaller ones abandon the coffee shop, their pale bodies blurring as they sprint toward the sound, moving with that terrifying, liquid speed. The Leviathan on the bus shrieks, a sound like tearing metal and hissing steam, and leaps off the vehicle, shaking the ground as it lands, charging after the others. The intersection is clear. I run. I don't worry about being perfectly quiet now. I worry about being fast. My boots pound against the cracked asphalt. I weave between abandoned cars, vault over the hood of a crushed taxi, my lungs burning with the toxic, dust-filled air. 50 feet. 30 feet. The clicking from down the street is getting frantic. They've reached the storefront. They realize there's no meat there. Just glass. 10 feet. I dive behind the remains of a brick retaining wall on the far side of the street, sliding on my knees, tearing the fabric of my slacks and scraping skin, just as the Leviathan turns around. I hold my breath, pressing my face into the dirt. Clack, clack, clack. The clicking sweeps over my position like a searchlight. The vibrations in the ground tickle the palms of my hands. But I'm still. I'm just another piece of rubble. Eventually, the clicking fades as the creatures move further down the street, hunting for whatever made the noise. I slowly pull myself up, peering over the brick wall. I'm in Pioneer Square. The cobblestone streets are ripped up, looking like a ploughed field. The historic brick buildings have fared poorly against the quake. Most have shed their facades, leaving open dollhouse views into destroyed apartments and offices. but my eyes lock onto the center of the square. The pergola. The iconic, ornate iron and glass structure that marks the entrance to the underground transit station. The glass is entirely gone, and the iron is twisted, leaning heavily to one side, but the entrance itself is not collapsed. The escalator shaft leading down into the earth is open. A wave of relief washes over me, so intense my knees actually buckle for a second. The tunnel is open. I can get down there. I grip my rebar and step out from behind the wall, walking toward the pergola. But as I get closer, the shadows around the entrance seem to shift. The moonlight catches on something pale and smooth. I freeze. It's perched directly over the top of the escalator shaft. It's different from the others. Smaller, leaner, but its armor is thicker, overlapping in jagged, spiked ridges. It isn't moving. It's standing perfectly still, its four legs gripping the twisted ironwork of the pergola. Its eyeless head is pointed down, directly into the dark shaft of the station. The fleshy slits on the side of its head are flared wide open, undulating gently. It's not hunting the surface. It's listening to the tunnels. It's a gatekeeper. And from deep down in the dark of the station, echoing up the escalator shaft, I hear a sound that makes my heart stop completely. A voice. Faint, echoing, and terrified. "Dad, is someone up there?" "Lily." The creature's head snaps to attention. The slits vibrate furiously. It lets out a low, hissing clack, and begins to slowly, methodically creep down the stationary metal stairs into the dark. "Dad, is someone up there?" The words are small, distorted by the concrete acoustics of the deep-bore tunnel, but they hit me like a physical electric shock. My daughter. She's alive. She's down there in the dark. But she just rang the dinner bell. The gatekeeper on the pergola doesn't roar. It doesn't need to. It simply unspools its body, its spiked, armored plating shifting with a sound like grinding river stones, and begins to creep down the mangled metal teeth of the stationary escalator. It moves with a terrifying, calculated slowness. It isn't rushing. It knows exactly where the sound came from. It's tracing the acoustic pathway down into the earth. Panic, hot and blinding, flares in my chest. I want to scream. I want to charge down that escalator and beat the thing to death with my length of rebar. But I am 42 years old, nursing a torn rotator cuff and a bleeding leg. That creature is 1,000 pounds of subterranean apex predator encased in bone armor. If I charge it, I die. And then Lily dies. I force the panic down into a tight, hard knot in my stomach. Think like an engineer, Marcus. Assess the structure. Find the bypass. The Pioneer Square station entrance isn't just an escalator. Like all deep transit hubs in the city, it's a triad. The main escalator bank in the center, flanked by a glass-walled elevator shaft on the left, and an emergency maintenance stairwell on the right. I tear my eyes away from the creature descending into the gloom and look to the right of the pergola. The heavy steel door to the maintenance stairwell is warped, the brickwork around its frame cracked and bulging from the quake, but it's slightly ajar. I move. I cross the 20 feet of broken cobblestone, my boots stepping only on the flat, stable surfaces, eyes locked on the space where the creature just disappeared. I reach the steel door. I slide my fingers into the gap. The metal is freezing cold. I pull. Slowly. The hinges groan, a low, metallic whine that sounds like a siren in the dead silence of the ruined square. I freeze. I wait for the clicking. I wait for the gatekeeper to turn around and rush back up the shaft. Nothing. It's entirely focused on Lily's echo. I slip through the gap and ease the door shut behind me, plunging myself into near-total darkness. The air in the stairwell is stagnant and thick. It smells of ozone from severed electrical lines, ancient concrete dust, and the sharp, coppery scent of fresh blood. There are no emergency lights here. The backup generators must have flooded or been crushed. The only illumination is a faint, sickly grey filtering down through the cracks in the ceiling above. I grip the rebar in my right hand and place my left hand flat against the concrete wall to guide myself. I take the first step down. The stairwell parallels the escalator shaft. There's only a thin cinder block wall separating me from the creature. As I begin my descent, I can hear it. SKRRK. Click. SKRRK. Click. The sound of its spiked legs piercing the aluminum treads of the escalator. It's moving at exactly my pace, just a few feet away through the wall. I can feel the vibrations of its weight translating through the concrete into the palm of my hand. It feels heavy, unstoppable. Breathe. Roll the weight. Heel to toe. I descend into the dark, counting the landings. 1, 2, 3. The deeper I go, the colder it gets. The temperature drops noticeably, replacing the unseasonably warm October air with a damp, chilling draught that smells like a freshly turned grave. By the fourth landing, my eyes have adjusted enough to make out shapes in the gloom. I see discarded items littering the stairs. A single high-heeled shoe. A shattered laptop. A canvas tote bag. The artifacts of a normal Tuesday afternoon commute, abandoned in a few seconds of geologic violence. I step over them carefully. Kicking a laptop down a flight of concrete stairs right now would be a fatal mistake. Fifth landing. The mezzanine level. I reach the heavy fire door at the bottom of the stairs. It features a narrow, wire-reinforced glass window. I press my face against the cold glass and peer out into the station's upper concourse. The Pioneer Square mezzanine used to be a bustling hub, a vast, vaulted space of polished tile, ticket kiosks, and digital departure boards. Now, it looks like the inside of a crushed tin can. The ceiling has partially caved in, dropping massive slabs of concrete and twisted ventilation ducts onto the concourse floor. The ORCA card readers are smashed flat. Emergency lighting, running on battery backups, casts the entire space in a demonic, flickering red glow. Dust motes the size of snowflakes drift lazily through the crimson light. And directly across the concourse from my door is the bottom of the escalator. I watch through the wire glass as the gatekeeper emerges. In the red emergency light, it looks even more horrific. Its pale armor is stained with old dirt and fresh blood. Its vertical jaw twitches, the translucent needle teeth catching the red glare. The fleshy slits on the side of its head are expanding and contracting rapidly, pulling in the stale air, tasting the environment. It steps off the escalator and onto the ruined tile of the concourse. "Dad, please." Lily's voice drifts up from the lower train platforms. It's faint, echoing up the secondary stairwells that lead down to the tracks. The creature's head snaps toward the sound. Its body lowers, its spiked legs digging into the ceramic tiles. It's preparing to leap, to bypass the stairs entirely and drop straight down into the lower level where she is hiding. I don't have time to think. I don't have time to be terrified. I only have physics. I look up, tracing the sight lines of the mezzanine. Directly above the creature, hanging from the vaulted ceiling, is the main digital departure board. It's a massive rectangular rig of steel framing and heavy glass monitors, probably weighing close to a ton. The earthquake has wrecked it. The industrial cables holding the left side have snapped, leaving the massive rig dangling precariously by a single, stressed steel bracket on the right, directly over the creature's path. That bracket is bolted into a concrete pillar just 10 feet from my stairwell door. If that bracket fails, the board falls. I push the fire door open. I don't bother being silent. I explode out of the stairwell, my boots slamming against the tiled floor. The creature's head whips toward me. The acoustic slits flare open. It registers my weight, my sudden movement. It abandons the faint echo of Lily and locks its attention entirely on me. It lets out a horrifying, wet hiss, its jaw splitting open, revealing a dark, ribbed throat. It lunges. I don't run at it. I run perpendicular to it, sprinting toward the concrete pillar. The creature bounds across the concourse, its spiked legs shattering the tiles, covering 30 feet in the blink of an eye. I can smell it now, a pungent, rotting stench that makes my eyes water. I reach the pillar. I slide to a halt, squaring my stance. The stressed steel bracket holding the massive departure board is right in front of me. I level. The metal is already warped, the heavy bolts pulling out of the cracked concrete. It just needs a little help. The creature is 15 feet away. 10 feet. I can see the individual fibers of muscle beneath its chitinous armor. I grip my 3-foot length of rebar with both hands like a baseball bat. I plant my feet, twist my hips, and swing with every ounce of strength I possess, channeling the fear, the anger, and the desperate love for my daughter into the strike. The heavy steel rebar smashes into the warped mounting bracket. Clang. The sound rings out like a gunshot. The impact sends a jarring shockwave up my arms, numbing my hands, but the physics hold true. The strike shears the remaining stressed bolts clean off the concrete. The creature is 5 feet away, leaping off the ground, its scythe limbs extending to spear me. Above us, the steel cables scream. The massive, 1-ton departure board drops from the ceiling like a guillotine. It catches the creature mid-leap. The sheer kinetic force of the falling steel and glass slams into the creature's back, driving it down into the reinforced concrete floor with a deafening crunch. Glass explodes outward in a tidal wave of shrapnel. Dust billows up in a thick, choking cloud. I throw my arms over my face and turn away as pieces of the shattered monitors rain down on my back and shoulders. Silence slams back into the room, broken only by the tinkling of settling glass and a thick, wet, gurgling sound. I slowly lower my arms and turn around. The departure board is a twisted ruin on the floor. Pinned completely beneath it is the gatekeeper. Its heavily armored back is cracked open like a stepped-on beetle. Thick, black fluid pools rapidly across the red-lit tiles. Its limbs twitch erratically, scraping weakly against the floor, but it's immobilized. The gurgling sound is coming from its crushed respiratory slits. It's dying. I stand there, my chest heaving, the rebar hanging loosely from my numb fingers. I am drenched in sweat. My bad shoulder is screaming in agony, entirely blown out by the swing. I survived. I killed it. But the victory is hollow, because the silence doesn't last. The sound of the falling departure board was colossal, a seismic event in its own right. From the dark, gaping maws of the lower train tunnels, the tunnels where Lily is, a new sound begins to rise. Not one set of clicking, not two, dozens. A cacophony of wet, echoing clack-clacks begins to swell from the depths of the station, vibrating through the floorboards, travelling up the escalator shafts. The red emergency lights flicker. The sound is like a rising tide of insects, multiplying, growing louder, growing closer. I just rang the dinner bell for the entire subterranean hive. I stumble forward, bypassing the twitching, dying creature, and rush to the railing that overlooks the lower tracks. The drop is maybe 40 feet down into complete darkness. "Lily!" I scream, abandoning all pretense of stealth. My voice tears my throat raw. "Lily, where are you?" For 3 agonizing seconds, There is only the rising tide of the clicking from the tunnels. Then, a flicker of light. Deep down on the southbound platform, a tiny, weak beam of a cell phone flashlight cuts through the gloom. "Dad!" Her voice is frantic, sobbing. "I'm down here. I'm trapped." I squint through the red haze and the dust. I can see the beam waving frantically. She's huddled behind a derailed light rail car, pinned between the crumpled metal and the tunnel wall. "Stay there!" I yell down, my voice booming in the cavernous space. "Do not move. Turn off the light. I'm coming." The light snaps off immediately. I look toward the stairs leading down to the platform. The clicking from the tunnels is deafening now. The vanguard of whatever is down there will be spilling onto the platform in less than a minute. I tighten my grip on the rebar, ignore the searing pain in my shoulder, and start sprinting for the stairs. We are miles from the surface, deep in the dark, and the true nightmare hasn't even begun. I take the stairs 3 at a time. The descent is a blur of cracked concrete and pulsing shadows. The emergency lighting down here is different from the mezzanine. Instead of a steady red glow, industrial strobes are flashing at 10-second intervals. It turns the entire descent into a disjointed, stop-motion nightmare. Flash. I see the stairs dropping away beneath me, littered with shattered acoustic tiles. Blackness. I feel my boot slip on a patch of wet rubble, my hand blindly scraping the handrail to catch my balance. Flash. The lower platform comes into view. It looks like the inside of a blender. The northbound light rail train never made it out of the station. The earthquake must have hit exactly as it was pulling in. The massive cylindrical tunnel is choked with an accordion of crumpled, derailed steel. The train cars are jammed against the support pillars at unnatural angles, windows blown out, the overhead power lines ripped down and sparking violently against the concrete track bed. I hit the platform floor. The impact sends a jolt of raw pain up my spine, but I don't stop. "Lily!" I keep my voice to a harsh, projected whisper. The clicking from the tunnels is no longer an echo. It is a physical pressure in the air, a wet, static hum that vibrates in my teeth. They are close. I navigate the obstacle course of the platform, keeping my back to the tiled wall, my rebar raised. The air down here is freezing, thick with the smell of pulverized concrete, ozone, and that ancient earthy rot. Flash. I see the crumpled cab of the lead train car, crushed against a structural column. Behind it, a sliver of space. A shadow huddled in the debris. Blackness. "Lily?" It's me. It's Dad. Dad. The voice comes from the shadow behind the cab. I scramble over a twisted piece of aluminum siding, my boots crunching on safety glass. I drop to my knees and slide into the narrow gap between the train and the tunnel wall. She's there. She's curled into a tight ball, her arms wrapped around her knees, wearing her oversized maroon high school debate team hoodie. She is covered head to toe in a thick layer of grey ash, making her look like a ghost. Her face is streaked with tracks of tears cutting through the dust. When she looks up at me, her eyes are wide, dilated, completely consumed by shock. I drop the rebar and pull her into my chest. She crashes into me, burying her face in my shoulder, her fingers digging into my back so hard it bruises. She is shaking violently, a deep, uncontrollable tremor that racks her entire body. "I've got you," I whisper into her hair, kissing the top of her dust-covered head. "I've got you, Lil. You're okay. I thought you were dead," she sobs, her voice muffled against my jacket. The roof just fell, Dad. Everyone on the platform. It just fell on them. Don't think about it. Look at me. I pull back slightly, framing her face with my hands. Are you hurt? Anything broken? She shakes her head, taking a ragged, hitching breath. No. Just scraped up. Dad, what's making that noise? The clicking. It's deafening now. It sounds like a million metallic typewriters clattering away in the dark. I look past her, peering around the edge of the train cab toward the gaping black mouth of the southbound tunnel. Flash. The strobe illuminates the tunnel for a fraction of a second. It is enough to burn the image into my retinas forever. The darkness is boiling. They are pouring out of the deep-bore tunnel like a pale, armored flood. They aren't just walking on the tracks. They are scuttling along the curved concrete walls, their spiked limbs finding purchase in the cracks, some even crawling inverted across the ceiling. There are dozens of them. Small ones, large ones. All of them snapping their vertical jaws, all of them twitching their fleshy, red acoustic slits. Blackness. My heart hammers against my ribs like a trapped bird. "Okay, Lily, listen to me very carefully," I say, my voice eerily calm. The engineer in my brain has taken the wheel. Panic is a luxury we can't afford. We cannot go back up the main stairs. They'll cut us off. "Then how do we get out?" she whispers, her eyes darting frantically toward the sound. "We don't. Not right away. We go deeper." I grab the rebar. I did the structural assessments for the HVAC retrofits in these transit hubs 5 years ago. There are maintenance corridors that run parallel to the main tunnels. They house the primary ventilation shafts and emergency power conduits. They're narrow, too narrow for the big ones to follow us, and heavily reinforced. I stand up, keeping my posture low, and pull Lily to her feet. "Keep your hand on my belt. Do not let go. Do not turn on your light. We move on the flashes." She grips the back of my leather belt. Her grip is like a vice. Flash. I scan the far wall of the platform, the side opposite the train. I'm looking for a specific marker. Yellow and black hazard striping. Blackness. Clack, 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 clack. A sound like a heavy sack of wet meat hits the roof of the train car we are hiding behind. One of them just jumped down from the mezzanine level above us. We are boxed in. Flash. There. 20 feet to our left, recessed into the concrete wall. A heavy steel grating painted with faded yellow stripes. It's the access point to the service corridor. Blackness. "Move," I hiss. We break from the cover of the train. I keep one hand tracing the tiled wall, the other gripping the rebar tight. Lily is a ghost attached to my waist, moving silently behind me. Scararake. The sound of metal tearing echoes directly behind us. The creature on the roof of the train is peeling the aluminum back, looking for the source of our voices. We reach the recess. I run my hands over the cold steel of the grate. It's a heavy, industrial door secured by a thick master padlock. "Flashlight," I whisper. "Cup it in your hands. Give me a sliver of light." Lily fumbles in her pocket, pulls out her phone, and clicks it on, burying the bulb in her palms so only a tiny, concentrated beam of light bleeds through her fingers. She points it at the lock. The padlock is heavy-gauge steel, but the bracket holding it to the concrete wall is ancient, rusted from decades of subterranean moisture. The earthquake hasn't been kind to it either. A massive hairline fracture runs right through the masonry behind the bracket. "Stand back," I tell her. I wedge the chisel end of the rebar into the gap between the bracket and the concrete. I plant my boots, lean my shoulder against the bar, and push. The pain in my torn rotator cuff explodes, a white-hot flare that makes my vision swim. I groan, biting down on my lip so hard I taste blood. Clack, clack. I look over my shoulder. Flash. A creature is standing on the platform, not 20 feet away. It's the size of a grizzly bear. Its pale dome is tilted directly toward us. The red slits are flared wide. It knows we're here. Blackness. It shrieks. "Pull, Lily. Pull the bar with me." I yell, abandoning all stealth. Lily grabs the rebar next to my hands. Together, we throw our combined weight backward. With a loud, metallic crack, the rusted bracket shears out of the damaged concrete. The heavy steel grate swings outward, knocking us both to the floor. The creature bounds across the platform. I can hear its heavy, spiked legs chewing up the tiles. I scramble up, grab Lily by the collar of her hoodie, and shove her violently into the dark, narrow opening of the service tunnel. I dive in right behind her. I grab the edge of the heavy steel grate and yank it shut just as the strobe flashes again. Flash. The creature is right there. It slams into the grate with the force of a speeding truck. The impact throws me backward against the opposite wall of the narrow service corridor. The vertical jaw splits open, pushing through the bars of the grate. Translucent, needle-like teeth snap wildly, inches from my face. A spray of thick, foul-smelling saliva hits my cheek. It burns like battery acid. Blackness. I wipe the slime from my face, my hand shaking uncontrollably. The creature shrieks and thrashes against the steel grate, its bone scythes clanging against the bars, but the metal holds. The gap is too small for its massive body. I fumble in the dark, feeling the floor for the rebar. My fingers brush the cold steel. I grab it, find the broken latch bracket on the grate, and jam the rebar horizontally through the bars, wedging it tightly against the concrete frame. A makeshift deadbolt. The creature hammers the grate twice more, frustrated, before letting out a long, hissing exhale. I can hear it clicking, communicating with the swarm on the platform. More of them are gathering outside the grate. I can hear their legs scratching against the tiles, a restless, hungry mass. But the door is sealed. We are in. I turn around. It is pitch black. A heavy, absolute darkness that presses against the eyes. "Dad!" Lily's voice is trembling in the dark. "I'm here." I reach out, sweeping my hands through the blackness until I find her shoulders. I pull her into a tight embrace. We slide down the curved concrete wall of the corridor together, sitting on the dusty floor. She starts to cry again, not the panicked sobbing from before, but a quiet, exhausted weeping. The adrenaline crash. I hold her, resting my chin on top of her head, staring blindly into the absolute dark. "We made it," I whisper, though the words feel hollow. We sit there for what feels like hours, just breathing in the dark, listening to the creatures clicking and scratching at the steel grate separating us from the platform. The air in this service tunnel is stale, smelling heavily of ozone, copper wire, and old dust. It's incredibly claustrophobic. The walls are maybe 4 feet across, a perfect cylinder of industrial concrete designed for cables and air, not people. Eventually, Lily's breathing evens out. She pulls back, sniffling. "Can I turn on my light?" she asks. "Low beam. Keep it pointed at the floor." She taps her phone screen. The harsh LED light cuts through the darkness, illuminating the space. Thick bundles of industrial cabling run along the ceiling. A massive, galvanized steel ventilation pipe runs along the left wall. "Where does this go?" she asks, shining the light down the corridor. It stretches endlessly into the dark, a shrinking point of perspective. "It's a maintenance artery," I say, rubbing my injured shoulder. "It runs parallel to the main transit line, dipping under the waterfront. It eventually connects to the utility substations near the stadiums. So we just walk?" I nod slowly. "We walk." The tunnel should be clear of those things. It's sealed from the main bore. If we can reach the substation, there are heavy industrial blast doors, and a surface access hatch that puts us outside the downtown fault zone. I stand up, groaning as my joints pop. I reach a hand down and pull her up. "Dad," Lily says, her voice suddenly tight. She is shining her light on the ground a few feet ahead of us. "What is it?" "Look." I step forward. There, stamped into the thick layer of decades-old dust on the concrete floor, is a footprint. But it's not a boot. And it's not the spiked, insectoid puncture of the pale creatures outside. It is a massive, elongated footprint, bare with 3 thick, deeply clawed toes. The dust is disturbed in a wide arc around it, as if something incredibly heavy had dragged a tail behind it. And the footprint is pointing exactly the direction we need to go. I look up, staring into the black void of the maintenance tunnel. The clicking from the platform behind us suddenly doesn't seem like the most terrifying thing in the world anymore. Whatever came out of the earth today. There's more than one species down here. I stare down at the 3-toed footprint in the dust. It's easily 2 feet long. The impression is so deep it has actually scored the top layer of the industrial concrete, leaving parallel grooves where the claws dragged forward. Lily's hand is trembling so hard the beam of a phone flashlight is dancing a frantic, jagged pattern across the floor. "Dad," she whispers. The word hangs in the damp air. "Dad, we can't go that way. We can't." I turn slowly to look back the way we came. Through the gloom, maybe 30 feet behind us, the heavy steel grate is silhouetted by the erratic flashing of the platform strobes. Pressed against the bars are the pale, eyeless faces of the insectoid creatures. I can hear the metallic scrape of their bone scythes trying to pry the rebar loose. I can smell their caustic, rotting breath even from here. "We can't go back, Lil. The grate will hold, but we can't open it without letting the swarm in." I keep my voice pitched low, soft, trying to project a calm I absolutely do not feel. "But look at it." She points the light back at the massive, reptilian track. "Whatever made that? It's huge. It's going exactly where we're going." "It went this way," I correct her, kneeling down. I bring my face close to the track. As an engineer, I read sights. I read materials. I look at the ridges of the disturbed dust. Look at the edges of the print. The dust has settled back over the track slightly. It's not fresh. Not from the last hour, anyway. The quake happened hours ago. This thing might have come through right after the initial rupture and kept moving. It's a deduction based on hope, disguised as science. But she needs it. I need it. I stand up, groaning as the torn muscle in my shoulder flares with a hot, sickening heat. "Turn the phone off. We need to conserve the battery. We only use it when we have to check for hazards or intersections. I don't want to be in the dark with whatever that is." "I know, baby. I know. But if your phone dies, we are entirely blind. We'll have to feel our way along the walls. And if we make a sound, we won't be able to see what's coming toward us. Turn it off. Keep your hand on my belt. We're going to walk." She hesitates. The fear is a physical weight in the narrow tunnel. But Lily is my daughter. Beneath the teenage sarcasm and the anxiety, there is a core of pure steel. Her mother had it, too. She presses her thumb against the screen, and the light dies. Total, suffocating blackness rushes in to fill the void. You don't really know what absolute darkness is until you're miles underground. Even in a dark room at night, there is ambient light. Starlight, street lamps, the faint glow of a digital clock. Here, there is nothing. If I put my hand an inch from my face, I can't see it. The brain tries to compensate, generating faint, swirling phosphenes, ghostly purple and grey static that dances across my vision. I reach out, my right hand finding the cold, curving concrete wall of the maintenance cylinder. My left hand drifts back until I feel Lily's fingers lock onto the leather of my belt. "Okay," I whisper. "Slow and steady. Slide your feet. Don't lift them. We don't want to trip over any debris." We start to walk. The first 20 minutes are a psychological torture chamber. Every sound is magnified 100 times. The scuff of my rubber-soled boots on the concrete sounds like sandpaper on a snare drum. Lily's breathing sounds like a wind tunnel. Behind us, the clicking of the swarm gradually fades as we put distance between ourselves and the station, but it is replaced by the sheer, oppressive silence of the earth pressing down on us. We are walking beneath the ruined streets of Seattle. Millions of tons of broken concrete, steel, and shattered glass are suspended directly above our heads. If the aftershocks hit, if the fault line decides to slip just a fraction of an inch more, this tunnel will pancake, and we will be crushed into a layer of sediment so thin they won't even find us for 1,000,000 years. I try to keep my mind occupied. I try to map our progress. "We're heading south," I say quietly, just to break the suffocating silence. "Following the alignment of the viaduct above us. We should be passing under Yesler Way soon." "How do you know?" Lily's voice is a fragile thread in the dark. "The tunnel slopes downward here. It has to dip below the old seawall foundations. The engineers who built the main bore had to route this service line underneath the primary drainage aquifers." "Aquifers," she repeats. "Does that mean water?" "Yeah. It might get a little wet up ahead. The quake probably ruptured the mains. Just stay close to the wall." As if on cue, the air temperature drops another 5 degrees. A damp, heavy chill seeps through my slacks. The smell of ozone and dust is replaced by the smell of wet earth, rust, and stagnant water. Squish! My right boot steps into a puddle. I slide my foot forward. The puddle deepens. Soon water is spilling over the toe of my work boot, soaking into my socks. It's freezing. "Water," Lily whispers, her feet splashing softly behind me. "It's cold. Keep moving." The tunnel dips here, but it'll incline again as we approach the substation. The water level rises steadily, ankle deep, mid-calf. By the time we've walked another 100 yards, the freezing water is sloshing around our knees. Walking through it is exhausting. Every step requires lifting the leg against the resistance of the heavy, dark liquid. My torn shoulder throbs in time with my heartbeat, a steady, nauseating rhythm. I stop. "Light," I whisper. Lily clicks the phone on. The beam cuts through the dark, reflecting off the surface of the flooded tunnel. The water is a murky, opaque brown, swirling with debris. Papers, plastic wrappers, and chunks of styrofoam insulation bob lazily in the current. Thick, black cables run along the ceiling, dipping dangerously close to the water in places where their brackets have snapped. But that's not what makes my stomach drop. Along the right side of the tunnel, the heavy, galvanized steel ventilation pipe, a tube 3 feet in diameter, has been completely crushed. Not collapsed from the ceiling falling. It has been flattened against the wall, as if a massive, unimaginable weight had pressed against it as it squeezed through the corridor. I run my hand over the crushed steel. There are deep, parallel gouges in the metal. Claw marks, easily an inch deep, tearing through the industrial steel like it was tin foil. Whatever made that 3-toed footprint is big enough that it barely fits in this tunnel. It had to force its way through, crushing the infrastructure just to pass. "Dad!" Lily's light shakes. She's looking at the water. A few feet ahead of us, floating in the murky brown liquid, is a hard hat. The bright yellow plastic is unmistakable, and just beyond it, snagged on a bundle of hanging wires, is a torn, blood-soaked piece of a high-vis reflective vest. A transit maintenance worker. He must have been in the tunnel when the quake hit. Or, more likely, he ran in here trying to escape the swarm on the platform, just like we did. But the swarm didn't get him. "Turn it off," I say softly. "Light off." She turns it off. "We need to go faster," I tell her. The calm engineer voice is slipping. The primal, terrified father is taking over. "Hold on tight. We're going to push through the water." We wade forward, the water resisting us, splashing loudly against the concrete walls. I don't care about the noise of the splashing right now. The creature that crushed that pipe isn't an ambush predator that hunts by tiny vibrations. It's a leviathan, an apex brute. Suddenly, I feel it. Not hear it. Feel it. It starts as a deep, rhythmic vibration in my chest. A pressure wave that pushes against my lungs. It's subsonic. Below the threshold of human hearing, but the water around our waists begins to vibrate, sending tiny, invisible ripples dancing across the surface. Thrum, thrum, thrum. It's a heartbeat. Or breathing. Something massive, displacing air and water somewhere in the labyrinth of tunnels ahead of us. Lily gasps, her hand tightening on my belt. "Do you feel that?" "Yes." "Keep moving." The water level begins to drop. We hit the incline. The freezing liquid recedes from our waists to our knees, then to our ankles, until we are walking on damp, slick concrete again. The tunnel widens. I can feel the change in air pressure. The suffocating tightness of the cylinder gives way to a larger cavernous space. "Light," I whisper. Lily hits the button. We are standing at the entrance to a subterranean utility hub. It's a massive, hexagonal concrete bunker. This is the junction where the maintenance lines converge before heading up to the surface substations. The ceiling here is 30 feet high, crisscrossed with catwalks and massive, humming transformers. Or they used to hum. Now, the transformers are dead, sparking weakly in the gloom. Half of the catwalks have collapsed, dangling like broken spiderwebs, and the entire lower floor of the hub is flooded into a deep, black subterranean lake. The path we need to take, a raised concrete walkway with yellow metal railings, skirts the edge of this black lake, leading toward a massive set of blast doors on the far side of the chamber. Above those doors, a heavy green sign reads, "Surface Access, Emergency Hatch B." "There," I point. "That's our way out, Lil. We just follow the walkway." "Dad," she says, her voice trembling, "look at the water." I shine the light down into the flooded basin of the utility hub. The water is completely still, like a mirror of black glass. But right in the center of the lake, about 50 yards away, the surface of the water is broken. A ridge of dark, heavily scaled armor breaches the surface. It looks like the back of a crocodile, but scaled up to nightmarish proportions. Each individual scute is the size of a manhole cover. It's not moving. It's just resting there, a silent island of prehistoric muscle in the dark. As the beam of the phone light sweeps over it, the subsonic vibration in my chest suddenly stops. The ridge slowly, silently, sinks beneath the black water, leaving barely a ripple behind. It knows we are here. The silence that follows the creature's descent is worse than the subsonic thrumming. It's an active, predatory silence. The water is a perfect, unreadable mirror of black ink, hiding a mass of muscle and armor that makes the insectoid things on the surface look like scavengers. "Turn it off," I breathe, my voice barely vibrating in my throat. Lily's thumb slips on the screen in her panic, the light dancing wildly across the ceiling for a sickening second before she finally manages to kill the app. The dark rushes back in, but this time it feels heavy. It feels wet. "Dad," she whispers, a tiny, fractured sound in the black. "It went under. It's in the water." I know. My brain is running through 100 different calculations, all of them ending in structural failure or death. The walkway we have to cross to reach the blast doors is a raised concrete lip hugging the right wall of the utility hub. I saw it clearly in the few seconds we had the light on. It's maybe 3 feet wide, guarded by a standard industrial yellow pipe railing. But the basin is flooded. The water level has risen so high that the Black Lake is lapping right at the edge of that concrete walkway. There is no high ground here. We are going to be walking a tightrope inches above whatever ancient, abyssal nightmare just slipped beneath the surface. "Listen to me, Lil," I whisper, reaching back to grip her hand. Her fingers are like ice. We have to cross the walkway. We keep our backs pinned flat to the concrete wall. We sidestep. Fast, but smooth. If you slip, I've got you. But you do not make a splash. You don't drag your feet. "I can't see," she hyperventilates, the sound dangerously loud in the cavernous space. "I can't see the edge." You don't need to see the edge. You just need to feel the wall on your back and my hand in yours. I will guide you. I slide my right boot forward, feeling the transition from the rounded tunnel floor to the flat, gritty concrete of the utility hub's walkway. My left shoulder, the good one, presses firmly against the damp, cold wall of the bunker. I hold my rebar in my right hand, angled down, acting like a blind man's cane to feel the edge of the drop-off to my right. "Okay. Step up," I whisper. I feel the tug on my belt as Lily steps up onto the walkway behind me. Her back hits the wall with a soft thud. "Slide," I command gently. We begin the traverse. Slide the right foot. Bring the left foot to meet it. Keep the weight pressed into the wall. The air in the hub smells overwhelmingly of deep aquatic rot, like low tide at the Puget Sound, mixed with the metallic tang of an old battery. Every few feet, a drop of condensation falls from the ruined catwalks high above, hitting the Black Lake with a sharp plink. Every time it happens, my heart seizes, expecting the water to erupt. We cover 10 feet. 20. The wall is not smooth. It's lined with thick bundles of dead electrical conduits and junction boxes. We have to maneuver around them in the pitch black, contorting our bodies while keeping our balance on the narrow, slick concrete. 30 feet. We are nearing the halfway point of the hexagonal room. The emergency blast doors should be directly across from us now, on the far wall. Plink. A drop hits the water, but this time it's followed by a sound that makes the blood freeze in my veins. A soft, liquid swish. It's the sound of something massive displacing water with a slow, powerful sweep of a tail. It's close. Not out in the center of the lake anymore. It's right beside us. I stop moving. I squeeze Lily's hand so hard I feel her knuckles grind together. She freezes instantly. We are pressed flat against the wall. Inches from my right boot, I can hear the water moving. It's lapping against the edge of the concrete walkway, not from the ambient settling of the flooded room, but from the wake of something swimming parallel to us. I can smell it now. A sickening, musky stench that overpowers the ozone and the dust. Swish. The water ripples against the concrete. It's pacing us. In the dark, blind as we are, it knows exactly where we are on the ledge. The insectoids upstairs hunted by high-frequency echolocation and surface vibration. This thing. It hunts by water displacement, by the microscopic shifts in air pressure. I realize with a sudden, sinking dread that pressing ourselves against the wall isn't hiding us. The acoustic shadow we are casting in this room is massive. "Dad," Lily breathes, so quietly it's less than a whisper. Just the shape of the word in the dark. "Don't move," I mouth back, even though she can't see me. Swish! A wave of cold, foul-smelling water washes over the toe of my right boot. It's rising. Light! I scream, the sudden noise exploding in the quiet bunker. "Turn on the light." Lily fumbles, panicking, but the brilliant beam of the LED cuts through the blackness a second later. The beam hits the water right next to my leg. It isn't a crocodile. It's a pale, fleshy nightmare. An amphibious leviathan built like an oversized hellbender salamander, but the size of a city bus. Its skin is a sickly, translucent white, stretched taut over slabs of dense muscle and ridged bone plating. It has no eyes, just a smooth, blunt snout covered in hundreds of tiny, trembling sensory pits. And it is rising out of the water, resting its massive, webbed claws on the very walkway we are standing on. Its jaw drops open. There are no teeth, just a jagged, serrated ridge of hardened bone that looks like it could snap a steel girder in half. Inside its pale, cavernous mouth, a massive, muscular tongue writhes. It lets out a low, deafening bellow that rattles the fillings in my teeth. "Run!" I roar. I grab Lily by the collar and yank her forward, abandoning the wall. We sprint down the narrow walkway. Behind us, the Leviathan surges out of the basin. The sound of a dozen tons of muscle and fat slamming onto the 3-foot-wide concrete ledge is catastrophic. Crack! The concrete walkway isn't built to hold that kind of weight. The section we were just standing on simply disintegrates, sheared right off the wall, tumbling down into the black water with a massive splash. I don't look back. The beam of Lily's phone is shaking violently, throwing crazy shadows across the blast doors ahead of us. We have maybe 40 feet to go. The beast roars again, an ear-splitting sound of pure, primordial rage. Since the walkway is too narrow for it to follow us properly, it drops back into the water, swimming alongside the ledge with terrifying speed. A massive, pale fin breaks the surface like a torpedo carving toward us. "Keep going. Don't stop," I yell. 30 feet. 20. The creature surges from the water again, this time ahead of us. It throws its massive upper body onto the walkway between us and the blast doors, cutting off our escape. The yellow industrial railing crumples under its weight like wet spaghetti. We slam to a halt, skidding on the slick concrete. It turns its blunt, eyeless snout toward us. The sensory pits along its jaw flare wide, reading the electrical impulses of our terrified, racing hearts. It opens its serrated maw, preparing to lunge and sweep us right off the ledge and into the dark water. Think, Marcus. The environment. Read the structure. I look up. Above the creature, hanging from the ruined ceiling, is one of the massive electrical transformers. The catwalk it was bolted to has collapsed, leaving the 2-ton metal box dangling precariously by a thick, black bundle of primary power cables. The cables are stretched taut, fraying, showering weak, dying sparks into the damp air. "Lily," I say, my voice suddenly deadly calm. "Shine the light right in its face." "What?" "Do it. Blind its heat sensors." She thrusts her trembling hands forward, pointing the harsh LED beam directly at the creature's smooth, pale snout. The beast hisses, recoiling slightly, shaking its massive head. It hates the sudden, localized heat of the bulb. It buys me exactly 2 seconds. I step forward, right to the edge of the creature's strike zone. I raise my jagged piece of rebar like a javelin. I am not aiming at the monster. Its armor is too thick. I aim upward, at the fraying bundle of power cables holding the 2-ton transformer directly above its head. I throw the steel bar. It spins end over end, a heavy, desperate arc. The jagged end of the rebar strikes the tension-loaded cable's dead center. The rusted, heavy steel bites through the degraded rubber insulation and severs the remaining copper core. Snap! The sound is like a whip cracking across the cavern. The cables give way. The massive industrial transformer drops from the ceiling in a shower of sparks and dust. It plummets 30 feet and strikes the Leviathan right on the crown of its pale, domed head. The sickening crunch of bone and metal echoes through the hub. The sheer weight of the impact drives the beast's head down, smashing right through the concrete walkway beneath it. The ledge gives way completely. With a furious, bubbling shriek, the creature, the transformer, and a massive chunk of the walkway plummet down into the black basin. A geyser of stagnant water erupts upward, soaking us to the bone. I grab Lily. The ledge is crumbling beneath our feet, the structural failure spiderwebbing back toward us. We leap the growing gap, our boots scrambling for purchase on the solid concrete landing right in front of the heavy green blast doors. We crash into the steel doors, gasping, coughing up the foul water that splashed into our mouths. The water in the basin is churning violently. The beast isn't dead. It's thrashing in the depths, tangled in the cables and the wreckage of the transformer. The black lake foams white with its fury. It won't stay down for long. I turn to the blast doors. Surface access. Emergency hatch B. There is a massive, red circular wheel in the center of the steel double doors. The manual override. I grab the wheel with both hands and heave. My torn shoulder screams, a white-hot agony that makes my vision go grey at the edges. The wheel doesn't budge. The mechanism is locked with decades of rust and disuse. Help me! I grunt through gritted teeth. Lily drops her phone. It clatters to the floor, the beam pointing sideways, and grabs the rusted wheel next to my hands. On 3, I pant. 1, 2, 3. We pull with everything we have left. The muscles in my back tear. I feel something pop in my forearm. From the water behind us, a pale, clawed hand shoots up, hooking onto the edge of our concrete landing. It's coming back up. Pull! I scream. With a deafening, metallic screech, the rust breaks. The wheel spins a quarter turn. The heavy internal deadbolts disengage with a heavy, industrial clack. I shove my shoulder against the steel door. It groans, scraping along the track, opening a gap just wide enough. Get in! Get in! I push Lily through the gap. The creature's massive snout breaches the edge of the landing. It snaps its serrated jaws, missing my leg by a fraction of an inch, its teeth clacking together with the force of a hydraulic press. I throw myself through the gap, rolling onto the hard metal grating of the room beyond. I scramble back to my feet, grab the edge of the heavy blast door, and throw my entire body weight into it. The heavy steel door slams shut, cutting off the horrific, gurgling roar of the Leviathan. I spin the locking wheel on the inside, driving the heavy deadbolts back into place. Silence falls. Just the heavy, ragged sound of our own breathing echoing in the new space. I slide down the cold steel of the blast door, collapsing onto the grating next to Lily. We are soaking wet, freezing, covered in dust and ancient rot. Lily's phone, which I managed to kick through the door during my dive, sits on the grating, pointing upward. It illuminates a vertical concrete shaft. Embedded in the wall is a heavy, steel ladder leading straight up into the darkness. A painted yellow sign on the wall reads, "Surface, 200 feet." We are at the bottom of the exit shaft. 200 feet straight up, and we are back in Seattle. Back on the surface. I look at Lily. She looks at me, her face pale in the LED light. We made it through the dark. But as I stare up at the long, terrifying climb ahead of us, I can't help but wonder what exactly is waiting for us when we open that hatch to the dying city above. 200 feet. In a normal world, climbing a vertical steel ladder for 200 feet, roughly 20 stories, is a grueling industrial workout. You'd wear a safety harness. You'd take breaks. In our world, after surviving a 9.8 megaquake, outrunning a swarm of subterranean gatekeepers, and narrowly escaping the jaws of a pale, eyeless leviathan, it's a death march. I sit on the cold metal grating, my back pressed against the heavy green blast door. The adrenaline that has been keeping me moving is finally beginning to metabolize, leaving behind a toxic sludge of lactic acid, shock, and blinding pain. My right shoulder is on fire. I can feel the torn fibers of my rotator cuff grinding with every shallow breath I take. We are soaked to the bone in freezing, stagnant water that smells of ancient rot. If we stay down here sitting on this grate, the monsters won't kill us. Hypothermia will. Dad! Lily's voice is a fragile, shivering thing. She is huddled next to me, her teeth chattering so hard I can hear them clicking together. I know, Lil. I know it's cold. I force my eyes open. The beam from her dropped phone illuminates the concrete walls of the vertical shaft. The yellow painted sign, surface, 200 feet. Mocks us from the gloom. I reach over and pick up the phone. The screen is heavily spider-webbed now, the glass splintering around the edges. I check the top right corner. 12%. Battery's dying, I say, my voice raspy. We can't stay here. If we lose the light before we reach the hatch, we're climbing 20 stories in pitch black. I left my length of rebar on the other side of the blast door. I am completely unarmed. My hands are empty, bruised, and bleeding. I press my palms against the grating and force myself to stand. The world tilts dangerously to the left for a second. I close my eyes, swallow down the nausea, and wait for the concrete shaft to stop spinning. Come on, I say, offering her my good hand. Up we go. Lily looks up at the ladder. It's an old industrial build, heavy iron rungs bolted directly into the curved concrete of the shaft. It disappears into the heavy, oppressive darkness above us. She looks terrified, but she takes my hand and lets me pull her to her feet. I'll go first, she says, her voice shaking. If I fall. You're not going to fall, I interrupt, stepping toward the ladder. But I'm going first. I need to test the rungs. If the quake cracked the concrete, some of these bolts might be loose. I weigh 190 pounds. If it holds me, it holds you. You stay exactly 3 rungs beneath me. Keep your eyes on my boots. If I stop, you stop. I take her phone and slide it into the front breast pocket of my ruined button-down shirt, camera facing outward. It casts a weak, bouncing cone of light straight ahead, illuminating the rusted iron and cracked concrete directly in front of my chest, while bleeding enough ambient light downward so Lily can see my feet. I grab the first rung. The iron is freezing, coated in a fine layer of damp, red rust that immediately stains my palms. I pull myself up. The climb begins. 1, 2, 3. I count the rungs in my head. It's an old engineer's trick to keep the mind focused on data rather than fear. Standard industrial ladder spacing is 12 inches per rung. 200 rungs to the top. 10, 11, 12. The pain in my right shoulder goes from a dull roar to a sharp, stabbing ice pick with every upward pull. I have to adapt my climbing style. I rely heavily on my legs, pushing myself upward from the thighs and calves, using my left arm to hook the rungs and my right hand merely to balance against the wall. It's slow, agonizing work. 30. 31. Below me, Lily climbs in perfect synchronization. I can hear her ragged breathing echoing in the tight acoustics of the shaft. The smell of the foul water is fading, replaced by the dry, dusty smell of pulverized cement. Boom! A heavy, reverberating thud echoes up the shaft from far below us. I freeze, my hands locking onto the iron. Below me, Lily stops instantly. We look down between our boots. The blast door at the bottom of the shaft is lost in the blackness. Boom! Crunch! The Leviathan! It's not dead. It untangled itself from the electrical cables, and it is throwing its massive, armored weight against the steel emergency doors. The sound is terrifying, a deep, percussive impact that vibrates through the concrete and travels straight up the ladder into the bones of my arms. "Keep moving," I grit out, forcing my legs to push upward again. The door is solid steel. It's deadbolt. It'll hold. Just keep climbing. I don't actually know if it will hold. If a 9.8 earthquake didn't break the frame, maybe the door is fine. But if the concrete housing is fractured, a 10-ton prehistoric battering ram might just pop the whole assembly right out of the wall. 50. 51. 52. My legs are burning. It feels like someone injected battery acid directly into my quads. We are a quarter of the way up. The air in the shaft is growing marginally warmer, losing that subterranean chill. 80. 81. Dad. Lily pants from below. My hands. They're cramping. Don't grip so tight, I call down, my own breathing coming in ragged, painful gasps. Rest your weight on your skeletal structure, not your muscles. Keep your arms straight when you hold. Let your bones do the work. I pause for 10 seconds, leaning my forehead against the cold concrete wall, letting the weak light of the phone illuminate the rust in front of my face. Sweat is pouring down my forehead, stinging my eyes, mixing with the dust. 100. Halfway. The impacts against the blast door far below us have stopped. Or maybe we are just too high up to hear them clearly anymore. I can't tell which is worse, the sound of the monster trying to break through, or the silence that implies it found another way around. 150. My right arm gives out. I reach up for the next rung, put weight on the shoulder, and the muscle simply fails. It's not just pain, it's a total mechanical shutdown. My right hand slips off the rusted iron. Gravity seizes me instantly. I fall backward, my boots slipping off the rung. "Dad!" Lily screams. My left arm, my good arm, hooks the rung. My shoulder sockets jerk violently as my entire body weight drops, arresting my fall with a sickening jolt. My right side slams hard into the rungs, bruising my ribs. I hang there by one arm, dangling over 150 feet of empty space. My boots pedal wildly in the dark for a terrifying second before the toes find the iron rung beneath me. I press my face against the ladder, gasping for air, my heart hammering so hard I think my chest might crack open. "I'm okay," I gasp out, though I sound like I'm drowning. "I'm okay. Just slipped." "Dad, you're bleeding," she says, her voice thick with panic. I look down. The impact against the ladder tore open the skin on my right forearm. It's a shallow cut, but it's bleeding freely, the dark drops falling past her into the abyss. It's just a scrape. We're almost there. 50 more feet, Lil. That's it. I force my right hand back onto the rung. I can't pull with it. I just use it as a guide, pushing entirely with my legs. 180. The air is changing again. I can smell smoke. Acrid, chemical smoke. the smell of burning tires, melting asphalt, and scorched wood, the air of the dying city bleeding down through the cracks in the hatch. 198. 199. My head bumps into solid metal. I look up. The phone light illuminates a massive, circular iron utility cover just inches above my skull. "We're here," I croak out. I adjust my footing, bracing my boots firmly on the top rungs. I wrap my left arm securely around the vertical side rail of the ladder, leaning back slightly to give myself leverage. I press my right shoulder, the torn, agonizing mass of useless muscle, and the flat of my palm against the heavy iron cover. I push. It doesn't move. "Dad!" "It's heavy," I grunt. "Probably weighs 200 pounds. And there's likely debris on top of it." I adjust my stance. I can't push with my right arm. I have to use my legs and my back. I press the crown of my head and my left shoulder against the cold iron. I take a deep breath of the smoky air. Push. I drive upward from my thighs. The ladder groans under the sudden torque. My neck muscles bulge. I push until red and black spots dance in my vision, until I feel a capillary burst in my nose, sending a hot trickle of blood down my lip. With a harsh, grating scrape of metal on concrete, the heavy iron cover lifts a fraction of an inch. A sliver of light cuts into the dark shaft. It's not sunlight. It's the flickering, angry orange glow of fire. It's moving. Lily cries out. I use the momentum, shifting my hips, driving my shoulder harder. The iron cover slides to the right, grinding across the asphalt above. I push it another 6 inches, creating a gap wide enough to squeeze through. The air that rushes into the shaft is hot and chokes the lungs. I reach up through the gap, my hand finding broken asphalt. I pull myself up, dragging my exhausted, battered body out of the vertical tomb and rolling onto the flat, solid ground. I lie there on my back for a moment, staring straight up. The night sky over Seattle is gone. It is completely obscured by a low, rolling ceiling of thick black smoke, underlit by a dozen massive urban fires. It looks like the roof of hell. "Dad, help me!" Lily's hand reaches up out of the hole. I roll over, grab her hand, and haul her up. She scrambles out of the hole and collapses next to me, coughing violently as the acrid smoke hits her lungs. We sit up and look around. We are in the Sodo district, south of downtown. To our left, the massive, hulking skeleton of the football stadium dominates the skyline. But it's wrong. The iconic, sweeping white arches of the stadium roof have collapsed inward, crushing the grandstands beneath thousands of tons of steel and concrete. To our right, the elevated highway, I-90, is a graveyard. Sections of the overpass have simply dropped, pancaking onto the industrial warehouses below. Semi-trucks are dangling precariously off the sheared edges of the concrete. But it's not the destruction that makes me slowly reach over and turn off the flashlight on Lily's phone. It's the movement. The Sodo district is a flat, industrial expanse of wide roads and massive shipping yards. And those wide roads are not empty. Under the flickering orange light of the burning warehouses, I can see them, the pale, armored gatekeepers, the insectoids. They aren't just hunting individually anymore. There are hundreds of them. They are moving in organized, flowing packs, scuttling over overturned shipping containers and crushed vehicles. They are dragging things out of the wreckage. Bodies. The clicking sound they make, that wet, resonant clack, 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 is no longer a distant echo. It is a constant, overwhelming static that fills the night air. It sounds like a plague of locusts, magnified to deafening proportions. We just climbed out of the frying pan, and looking at the swarming, clicking ruins of the industrial district, I realize we have climbed directly into the fire. The heat hits us before the sound does. After hours in the freezing, stagnant depths of the earth, the surface of Seattle feels like the inside of a blast furnace. The air is thick, oily, and radiating a dry, chemical warmth. It tastes like a house fire mixed with an industrial spill, burning rubber, scorched insulation, and the sharp, toxic tang of ruptured transformer fluid. We are lying on our stomachs on a cracked slab of asphalt, surrounded by the towering, broken silhouettes of the Sodo district. I look back at the open manhole behind my boots. The faint, flickering orange light of the burning city reflects off the lip of the iron cover. If we leave it open, that amphibious leviathan at the bottom of the shaft might figure out how to slither its way up 200 feet of concrete. It's a terrifying thought, but an open hole also amplifies sound. It's an acoustic chimney. "Lil," I croak, my throat raw from the smoke and the dust. "Help me close it." She doesn't argue. She crawls over on her hands and knees. My right arm is a dead, agonizing weight hanging from my shoulder, completely useless. I sit up, planting my boots against the heavy iron disc. Lily places her small, trembling hands against the rough metal beside my boots. "Push," I whisper. We drive our weight forward. The iron cover grinds against the concrete rim with a harsh, grating screech. It's a terrible, abrasive noise, but the ambient roar of the fires and the distant, overlapping clicking of the swarm helps to mask it. With a heavy, metallic clang, the cover drops into its recessed seating. The acoustic chimney is sealed. We are cut off from the depths, fully committed to the surface. "Get low," I tell her, grabbing the fabric of her hoodie with my good hand and pulling her down until we are both pressed flat against the pavement. "Crawl to the van." About 30 feet away, an abandoned Seattle Public Utilities van is resting on its side, its windshield shattered, its rear doors popped open, spilling coils of orange fiber-optic cabling into the street. We drag ourselves across the jagged asphalt, staying entirely within the deep, flickering shadows cast by the burning warehouses to our right. Every movement is agony. My ribs throb where I slammed into the ladder. My torn forearm leaves a faint, wet trail on the dusty road. But the fear overrides the pain. It's a cold, primal override switch that forces the body to ignore its own destruction in the name of survival. We reach the overturned van and press our backs against its undercarriage. The metal is warm from the ambient fires. I carefully peer around the edge of the front bumper, looking out over the massive expanse of First Avenue South. What I see makes the breath completely abandon my lungs. When the quake hit downtown, I saw chaos. I saw panic. But here, in the industrial district, I am looking at horrifying, organized purpose. The wide avenue is split by massive fissures, just like the rest of the city. But the pale, armored insectoids aren't just aimlessly wandering the wreckage. There are easily 200 of them in my immediate field of vision. They are moving in synchronized, flowing columns, their multi-jointed legs navigating the buckled pavement with sickening speed and efficiency. The clicking, that wet, bone-on-bone sound, is a constant, deafening static. But watching them from behind the van, I realize it's not just echolocation. It's a language. A large creature, easily the size of a delivery truck, stands atop a crushed shipping container, its red acoustic slits flaring wildly. It emits a rapid, staccato burst of clicks. Clack, clack, clackis. Below it, a pack of 6 smaller creatures instantly changes direction, breaking off from the main column and scuttling toward the ruins of a collapsed brick brewery. They are operating on a hive mind, a command structure. "Dad," Lily whispers, peeking over my shoulder. Her voice is barely audible over the roaring fires. "What are they doing?" "I don't know," I breathe. But a moment later, The pack of 6 emerges from the rubble of the brewery. My stomach violently twists into a cold, hard knot. They are carrying people. Some of the bodies are limp, covered in white dust and dark blood, casualties of the quake. But some of them are moving. I can see a man in a torn security uniform struggling, kicking his legs, his hands pinned to his sides by the massive, scythe-like limbs of the creature carrying him. He is screaming, but his voice is entirely drowned out by the cacophony of the swarm. They aren't eating them. The vertical jaws aren't snapping. They are holding the humans carefully, delicately even, suspended in the cages of their spiked front legs. They carry their cargo to the edge of the widest, deepest fissure in the center of the avenue, and without a moment's hesitation they step over the precipice, plunging back down into the abyss, taking the survivors into the dark. "Oh my God!" Lily whimpers, burying her face in the back of my jacket. "They're taking them down there. Why are they taking them down there?" "Don't look," I tell her, my own vision swimming with a sickening mix of horror and vertigo. "Just keep your head down. Harvesting. They aren't just predators. They are harvesters." The earthquake cracked open the pantry, and now the hive is stocking up for the winter. We can't stay on the ground. These things hunt by vibration. Every footstep we take on the asphalt is a dinner bell. If we try to navigate the streets of Sodo, surrounded by hundreds of them, we won't make it 3 blocks before a patrol picks up our seismic footprint. I pull back behind the van and scan the skyline above the smoke. I need isolation. I need structural separation from the earth. Through the churning black clouds, a colossal shape breaks the skyline to the west. We are only a few blocks from the port of Seattle. The massive container terminals. Standing at the edge of the water, illuminated by the fires, are the gantry cranes. They look like giant, white steel at-walkers from Star Wars. Massive structural legs supporting a horizontal bridge, with an operator's cabin suspended high in the air. If we can reach one of those cranes and climb up to the operator's cabin, we will be 150 feet in the air, encased in reinforced glass and steel. More importantly, we will be entirely disconnected from the asphalt. The creature's seismology won't work on us if we aren't standing on the ground. "Look at me," I say to Lily. I grab her chin with my good hand, forcing her to look away from the avenue. Her eyes are wide, glassy with terror. "We are going to the port. You see those big white cranes in the distance?" She nods, a tiny, jerky motion. "We get to the top of one of those, we're safe. They can't feel our footsteps up there. We can rest. But we have to cross the rail yard to get there. It's going to be a maze of shipping containers." "I can't," she whispers. "My legs. They feel like water, Dad. I can't run." "We aren't running. Running is death. We are going to walk, heel to toe, just like we did in the alley. You don't step on the ground, you press into it. You follow exactly in my footsteps. If I freeze, you turn to stone. Understand?" She swallows hard, wiping a smear of soot and tears from her cheek. She nods again. "Okay. Stay low." I peek around the bumper one last time. The main column of the swarm is moving north, toward the denser populations of downtown. But stragglers and scout packs are weaving through the parked cars and industrial debris everywhere. We slip out from behind the van, keeping our bodies crouched so low our knees practically scrape the pavement. The heat is oppressive. It bakes the moisture right out of my skin. My wet clothes are already beginning to steam, clinging to my body like a heavy, foul-smelling second skin. We move from the shadow of the van to the shadow of a crumpled chain-link fence, and then into a narrow alley between 2 sprawling, corrugated metal warehouses. Every step is an agonizing calculation. Look at the ground. Identify debris. Place the toe of the boot. Roll the weight onto the heel. Listen. We make it through the alley and emerge into the edge of the Seattle rail yard. It is a surreal, terrifying landscape. Thousands of massive, multicolored steel shipping containers are stacked like a giant's discarded building blocks. The earthquake has wreaked havoc here. Entire stacks have toppled over, crushing the trains beneath them, creating a chaotic, three-dimensional labyrinth of leaning steel corridors and dead ends. "Stay close to the metal," I whisper. "Keep your hand on the containers." We slip into the maze. It's darker in here. The towering walls of the shipping containers block out the light of the fires, plunging us into deep, shifting shadows. The air is entirely still, trapping the smell of spilled diesel fuel and ocean salt. We navigate the narrow canyons of steel. The metal walls above us groan and pop as they cool in the night air, or shift precariously on their crushed foundations. Every time the metal shrieks, my heart stops, expecting the pale, armored face of a gatekeeper to peer over the edge. We cover maybe 100 yards. The base of the nearest white gantry crane is visible now, just a few rows of containers away. Its massive steel legs are planted firmly on the concrete pier, though one set of its heavy track wheels has been derailed by the quake. We turn a corner, entering a wide avenue between two rows of stacked containers. And we freeze. 50 feet ahead of us, blocking the path to the crane, is one of them. It's an adult. Heavily armored, its pale chitin stained black with soot and grease. It isn't moving. It's standing perfectly still in the center of the corridor, its 4 spiked legs planted firmly on the concrete. Its massive head is lowered, the blind, domed snout hovering just an inch above the ground. The red acoustic slits on its jaw are flared to their absolute maximum, undulating with a sickening, wet rhythm. It is listening to the earth. I throw my good arm back, pinning Lily flat against the corrugated red steel of the shipping container behind us. I don't breathe. I don't blink. The creature takes a step forward. Clack. The heavy bone scythe of its front leg strikes the concrete. It takes another step. Clack. It is moving toward us. Slowly. Methodically. It hasn't zeroed in on us yet. If it had, it would have crossed the 50 feet in a fraction of a second. It is sweeping the corridor, sweeping the micro-vibrations in the concrete. My right arm, hanging useless at my side, begins to tremble. It's an involuntary muscle spasm from the torn rotator cuff. The nerves are misfiring, sending panicked signals to dead muscle. I try to clamp down on it, pressing my forearm against my hip, but the tremor is violently shaking my hand. The creature stops. 30 feet away. Its head snaps up. The domed skull tilts slightly, pointing directly at the space we are occupying. It felt the tremor. It felt the tiny, rhythmic tapping of my trembling hand against the fabric of my slacks. The vertical jaw splits open, revealing the rows of translucent, dripping teeth. It lets out a low, sustained hiss, a sound of terrifying, absolute focus. "Dad," Lily breathes. It's less than a whisper, but in the silent corridor of the shipping containers, it might as well be a gunshot. The creature's legs tense. The heavy armor plates on its back shift, grinding together. It's preparing to leap. I look frantically around. To my left, nothing but a sheer wall of steel. Behind us, a dead end. To my right, at the base of the container we are pressed against, is a heavy steel locking bar, the mechanism that secures the container doors. It has snapped loose during the quake, hanging by a single rusted hinge. I don't have time to think. The creature's hind legs compress. I kick the locking bar with the steel toe of my boot. Clang, rattle, clang. The heavy metal bar swings wildly, slamming against the hollow steel door of the shipping container. The acoustic boom echoes down the corridor like a thunderclap, vibrating through the metal walls. The creature shrieks, entirely overwhelmed by the sudden, massive vibration directly to its left. It lunges instinctively toward the source of the noise, its bone scythes burying themselves an inch deep into the steel door of the shipping container, right where the bar struck. It rips the metal open like a tin can, searching for the meat that made the sound. "Run," I hiss. I grab Lily's hand, and we sprint down the left side of the corridor, hugging the opposite wall of containers. We slip right past the creature's blind flank while its head is buried in the torn metal of the shipping container, thrashing wildly. We break out of the container maze and onto the open concrete of the loading pier. The gantry crane towers above us. Up close, it's a terrifyingly massive structure. The steel legs are the size of redwood trees. "The stairs!" I gasp, pointing to the inside of the nearest leg. Built into the structural webbing of the crane leg is a steep, zigzagging set of industrial metal stairs, leading up to the machinery deck and the operator's cabin above. We hit the stairs at a dead sprint. Our boots clang against the metal grating. It's a terrible noise, but we are out of stealth options. We just need altitude. We clear the first landing. 30 feet up. Behind us, a shriek echoes out from the container maze. The gatekeeper figured out it was tricked. It heard our boots on the metal stairs. I look over my shoulder. The pale, armored monstrosity explodes out of the container corridor, sliding on the concrete pier, its massive head snapping toward the crane. It charges the stairs. "Faster, Lil. Don't look back." We take the stairs two at a time. The pain in my shoulder is a blinding white light that eclipses everything else. I am dragging myself up the railing with my left hand, my legs burning with lactic acid. 60 feet up. 90 feet. The creature hits the bottom of the stairs. But the massive beast isn't built for enclosed human architecture. The industrial stairs are too narrow for its bulk. It tries to force its way up, its spiked legs tearing through the metal safety railings, but its massive, armored thorax wedges tightly between the structural crossbeams of the crane's leg. It shrieks in frustration, thrashing its scythe limbs, shredding the metal stairs beneath us into ribbons, but it is stuck. It can't squeeze through the steel lattice. We keep climbing. My lungs are bleeding, whistling with every breath. 120 feet. We reach the machinery deck. A flat, steel-grated platform suspended directly beneath the massive horizontal bridge of the crane. Hanging beneath this deck, enclosed in thick, reinforced glass, is the operator's cabin. We scramble across the grating and find the heavy metal hatch that leads down into the cabin. I grab the handle, twist, and pull. The hatch swings open smoothly. Lily drops down into the cabin first. I follow, pulling the heavy steel hatch shut above my head, spinning the locking wheel until it clicks tightly into place. I collapse onto the floor of the cabin. It's a small space, maybe 8 by 8 feet, filled with control joysticks, monitors, and an operator's chair. The floor is solid steel, but the walls and the slanted front window are entirely made of thick, industrial safety glass. We are sealed inside a transparent box, suspended 150 feet above the ruined port of Seattle. The air in the cabin is stale and stiflingly hot, baked by the sun all day and trapped when the power failed. But it smells like vinyl and old coffee, not smoke and rot. Lily curls into a ball against the back wall, her arms wrapped around her head, sobbing uncontrollably. The adrenaline has left her completely, leaving only raw, unfiltered terror. I drag myself over to her, wrapping my good arm around her shoulders, pulling her against my chest. I don't say anything. I just rock her slowly as the tears soak into my ruined shirt. Minutes pass. The violent hammering of my heart slowly begins to subside. The pain in my shoulder settles into a deep, sickening throb. I look out the slanted glass window of the cabin. From up here, we have a terrifying, panoramic view of the apocalypse. The fires of downtown Seattle rage unchecked, painting the low-hanging smoke clouds in demonic shades of crimson and orange. The Space Needle is still standing in the distance, but the city around it is unrecognizable. I look straight down at the rail yard and the avenues of Sodo. The swarm is everywhere. From this altitude, without the immediate threat of being torn apart, I can see the true scope of what is happening. They aren't just harvesting bodies. Near the massive fissure on First Avenue, I watch as dozens of the large, heavily armored creatures form a circle around the edge of the chasm. They raise their massive bone scythes high into the air and drive them simultaneously into the asphalt. Crunch! They pull back, tearing massive chunks of pavement and dirt away, dragging it away from the hole. Then they do it again, and again. They're widening it, I whisper, the realization sending a profound, icy chill down my spine. They aren't just visiting the surface. They are remodeling it. They are breaking down the bottleneck of the fault line, expanding the openings, tearing the roof off their subterranean world. They are terraforming Seattle to bring the rest of the hive up. I press my forehead against the cool, reinforced glass of the cabin, watching the pale tide of monsters systematically dismantling the city below. We survived the day. We made it out of the ground. But as I watch the army of the deep tearing the world apart, I know the nightmare hasn't even begun. The crane's operator cabin is a 6-by-6-foot cube of heavy machinery, industrial plastics, and thick, angled safety glass. For the man who used to sit in this chair, a guy who probably complained about his union dues and the lack of decent coffee in the break room, it was just a workspace. For Lily and me, it is the most beautiful fortress on planet Earth. The silence inside the cabin is absolute, save for the ragged, uneven rhythm of our breathing. The thick glass completely dampens the roar of the fires and the deafening, static clicking of the swarm below. It's like someone finally hit the mute button on the apocalypse. I don't know how long we just sit there on the grated steel floor. 10 minutes? An hour? Time has lost its elasticity. The adrenaline crash is a physical weight, pinning me to the metal grating. Every muscle fiber in my body is vibrating with a deep, toxic exhaustion. "Dad," Lily whispers. Her voice sounds wrecked, raspy from the smoke and the crying. "Your arm. It's still bleeding." I blink, forcing my eyes to focus. I look down at my right forearm. The cut I got from slipping on the ladder isn't deep, but it's long, and the blood has soaked through the shredded sleeve of my dress shirt, pooling darkly on the metal floor of the cabin. "I'm fine," I croak out, leaning my head back against the base of the operator's chair. "Just a scrape." "It's not just a scrape. You're losing blood." She pushes herself up, her movements stiff and shaky. She grabs her phone from where she dropped it on the floor. The screen is cracked, the battery in the single digits, but the flashlight still works. She sweeps the weak beam around the small cabin. There's the heavy, ergonomic leather chair in the center, 2 massive control joysticks flanking it, a dashboard of dead monitors and toggles, and mounted on the back wall, right beneath the heavy steel entry hatch, is a bright yellow metal box. A white cross is painted on the front. Lily scrambles over to it, her boots slipping slightly on my blood. She pops the metal latches. Inside, it's an industrial, OSHA-mandated trauma kit. Dust motes dance in the beam of her phone light as she pulls out a thick roll of gauze, a bottle of iodine, and a pair of heavy trauma shears. Behind the medical supplies, there are 3 plastic bottles of emergency drinking water, coated in a thick layer of grime. She grabs one of the bottles and the medical supplies, crawling back over to me. "Drink," she says, unscrewing the cap and pressing the bottle into my good left hand. I bring it to my lips. The water is warm, tasting heavily of plastic and old dust, but it is the greatest thing I have ever consumed. I down half the bottle in 3 massive gulps before I force myself to stop, handing it back to her. "Save the rest. We don't know how long we're going to be up here." She takes a small sip, then sets the bottle down. She picks up the trauma shears. "Give me your arm." I hold out my right arm. My shoulder screams in protest at the movement. The torn rotator cuff feels like it's packed with broken glass. I grit my teeth as she expertly cuts away the blood-soaked fabric of my sleeve, exposing the jagged laceration on my forearm. "This is going to sting," she mutters, uncapping the iodine. "Do it." She pours the dark amber liquid directly onto the wound. The pain is sharp and immediate, a chemical fire that burns away the grime of the tunnels. I hiss, my jaw clenching, but I don't pull away. Lily's hands are shaking, but she works with a focused intensity that reminds me so much of her mother. She wraps the thick gauze tightly around my forearm, securing it with medical tape. "There," she says, her voice catching slightly. She slumps back against the glass wall. "Better. Thank you, Lil. Good job." She pulls her knees up to her chest, resting her chin on them. The faint, flickering orange light from the burning city below paints her face in harsh shadows. "What do we do now, Dad? We can't stay up here forever. We don't have food. We barely have water. We survive the night," I tell her. I shift my weight, wincing, and pull myself up into the operator's leather chair. It groans under my weight. From this vantage point, looking out through the slanted floor-to-ceiling glass, I have a commanding view of the nightmare below. We watch. We learn how they operate. And we wait for daylight. You think the daylight will stop them? They lived miles underground, Lily. Total darkness. Their skin is completely devoid of pigmentation. They have no eyes. The sheer volume of UV radiation from direct sunlight has to be agonizing to a biological system that evolved in pitch black. It's an engineer's hypothesis, built on the mechanics of biology, but it's the only sliver of hope we have. I turn the phone flashlight off to conserve the last few % of the battery. The cabin is plunged into the ambient, flickering orange gloom of the burning skyline. We keep our vigil. The hours stretch into a grueling marathon of psychological endurance. From our glass cage 150 feet in the air, we watch the terraforming of Seattle. The swarm is relentless. The heavy, armored brutes act as the excavators, using their massive bone scythes to shear away the asphalt and bedrock around the fissures, widening the abyssal cracks. The smaller, faster insectoids act as the carriers, dragging the debris, and the bodies, down into the dark. I watch a pack of them systematically dismantle a derailed freight train in the yard directly beneath our crane. They peel the corrugated steel off the boxcars with horrifying ease, stripping the train down to its chassis, carrying the metal scraps into the fissures. They are building something down there, reinforcing their tunnels, maybe, or building a hive structure. Around 4 a.m., the temperature in the cabin drops significantly. The glass becomes cold to the touch. Lily falls into a fitful, exhausted sleep on the metal grating at my feet, curled into a tight ball, shivering in her damp hoodie. I take off my ruined suit jacket and drape it over her, leaving myself in just my torn, blood-stained undershirt. I don't sleep. I can't. I sit in the leather chair, my eyes burning, watching the city burn. Slowly, imperceptibly at first, the sky to the east begins to change. The deep, bruised black of the night softens into a dark, ashy purple. The thick canopy of smoke covering the city diffuses the light, but the dawn is undeniable. I lean forward, pressing my hands against the cold glass. Down in the rail yard, the rhythm of the swarm shifts. The constant, deafening static of their clicking begins to change in pitch. It becomes sharper, more frantic. The massive excavators stop tearing at the asphalt. They raise their eyeless, domed heads toward the eastern horizon, their red acoustic slits flaring wide, testing the changing atmospheric pressure. As the first true, grey rays of morning light pierce the smoke canopy, hitting the streets of Sodo, the reaction is instantaneous. A collective, hissing shriek rises from the swarm. It's a sound of pure, biological distress. I watch in awe as the pale armor of a gatekeeper directly below me is struck by a shaft of morning light. The creature's skin begins to literally smoke. It writhes, its limbs thrashing wildly as the UV radiation blisters its unpigmented flesh. It scrambles frantically into the deep shadow of a toppled shipping container, seeking refuge. Across the entire industrial district, the horde breaks. The organized columns dissolve into a chaotic, panicked stampede. Thousands of the creatures abandon their terraforming, abandoning their harvest, and pour back into the fissures. Like a receding tide of pale, violent insects, they vanish into the earth. Within 20 minutes, the streets are completely empty. The sun has risen. The monsters are gone. Lily, I say, my voice rough. I reach down and gently shake her shoulder. Lily, wake up. She gasps, jerking awake, her eyes wide with lingering panic. She looks around the cabin, then up at me. Look, I point out the window. She pulls herself up, leaning against the armrest of my chair, and stares down at the rail yard. The devastation is absolute. The pavement is shredded, the trains are dismantled, and the massive fissures gape open like wounds in the earth. But nothing is moving. They're gone, she whispers, disbelief washing over her face. The sunlight, I nod. It burns them. They retreated underground. As long as the sun is up, the surface belongs to us. It's a massive tactical advantage. A daytime window to move, to scavenge, to find a way out of the city. I shift my gaze away from the ruined streets and look out toward the west, toward the water. The port of Seattle borders Elliott Bay. The water is a flat, steely grey under the smoky morning sky. My eyes scan the docks, looking for any sign of a surviving boat. Most of the commercial fishing vessels and cargo ships were either thrown onto the piers by the tidal surge of the Quake, or dragged out to sea by the receding water. But then I see it. About a half-mile out in the bay, floating aimlessly in the grey water, is a massive white and green vessel, a Washington State ferry, the Jumbo Mark II class. It can hold 2,000 passengers and over 200 cars. It's sitting low in the water, adrift, completely dead in the ocean. No engine wake. No smoke from its stacks. I squint, leaning closer to the glass. High up on the ferry, in the bridge where the captain steers, there is a light. It's faint, but in the dim morning gloom, it's unmistakable. It's a rhythmic, flashing light. 3 short flashes. 3 long flashes. 3 short flashes. SOS. Someone's out there. I say, my heart giving a sudden, violent kick against my ribs. Lily follows my gaze. On the ferry? Yeah. Someone in the bridge is signaling. They survived the night. My engineer's brain instantly starts mapping the variables. The ferry is massive. It has emergency supplies, food, medical bays, and heavy steel bulkheads that can be sealed tight. If we can get on that boat, we have a floating fortress. We just need to figure out a way to get the engines running, and we can sail right out of Puget Sound, away from the fault lines, away from the subterranean hives. Can we reach it? Lily asks, looking down at the mangled docks below. We have to, I say. I push myself out of the operator's chair. The sun gives us maybe 10 hours of safety on the surface. We need to climb down, find a skiff or a Zodiac in the marina wreckage, and row out to that ferry. I walk over to the heavy steel hatch in the floor. I spin the locking wheel and pull it open. The morning air that rushes in is cool, smelling of salt and ash. "But, Dad," Lily says, her voice trembling slightly. She's staring out at the grey water of the bay. The monsters, the ones with the scythes, they hate the sun. Right. So we're safe. But what about the other one? She asks, turning to look at me. The memory of the flooded subterranean bunker hangs between us. The big one in the water. The one that was blind. Do you think the sun burns it too? Or do you think it's just waiting down there? I look out at the flat, steely expanse of Elliot Bay. The water is deep, dark, impenetrable. I don't know, I admit softly, but we don't have a choice. We are out of water, out of food, and the sun is already burning its short fuse across the sky. I grab the handle of the hatch and begin the long, agonizing descent back down to the broken earth. The descent down the gantry crane is a slow, agonizing blur. Gravity might be on our side, but my body is completely spent. My right arm is immobilized, bound tightly in iodine-soaked gauze, throbbing in time with my heartbeat. Lily takes the lead, guiding my footing, her voice a steady, calming anchor in the smoky morning air. When my boots finally touch the concrete of the pier, my knees buckle. I catch myself against the steel leg of the crane, gasping for air. The silence of the surface is deeply unnatural. After hours of the deafening, insectoid clicking, the quiet feels like a physical pressure in my ears. The morning sun, filtered through the thick canopy of black smoke, casts a sickly, jaundiced light over the ruins of Seattle. We need to find a boat, I tell Lily, forcing myself to stand straight. Before the sun goes down. Before they come back up. We move through the wreckage of the port of Seattle. The tidal surge from the 9.8 Quake had wreaked havoc on the shoreline. Massive cargo ships are breached against the seawalls, groaning under their own weight. The recreational marina to the south is a graveyard of splintered fiberglass and tangled masts. But tucked between the ruins of a collapsed harbourmaster's office and a sheared concrete pylon, we find it, a rigid-hulled, inflatable Zodiac. It's small, maybe 12 feet long, designed for port security or maintenance. The outboard motor's housing is cracked, leaking thick black oil into the water, completely useless. But strapped to the interior pontoons are 2 heavy aluminum oars. "Help me push it out," I grunt. We drag the Zodiac over the cracked concrete, the thick rubber hull scraping loudly. We ease it over the seawall, dropping it 4 feet into the dark, ash-choked water of Elliot Bay. Lily climbs down the rusted mooring ladder first, dropping into the bow. I follow, wincing as my torn shoulder screams, and practically fall into the stern. I unstrap the oars. I can't row with both arms. I hand one oar to Lily. "Port and starboard," I tell her, my breath ragged. "You take the left side, I'll take the right." We mirror each other. Long, deep pulls. She nods, her jaw set. She slides the oar into the oarlock. We push off the seawall. Navigating Elliot Bay in a 12-foot Zodiac with one good arm and a terrified teenager is an exercise in pure willpower. The water is thick with debris. We weave through floating fields of lumber, crushed cars that were swept off the viaduct, and things I refuse to look at too closely. The water is a dark, impenetrable slate grey, coated in a shimmering film of diesel fuel. Every time the oar dips into the water, I think of the pale, amphibious leviathan we left in the subterranean utility hub. The gatekeepers hate the sun. But water is an incredible filter for UV light. Does the leviathan care if it's daytime? Or is it tracking our acoustic wake right now, swimming up from the flooded transit tunnels, out into the open bay? Keep a steady rhythm, I say, my voice tight. Don't splash. We row for 45 minutes. My muscles are screaming, burning with a deep, acidic fire. But slowly, agonizingly, the massive white and green hull of the Jumbo Mark II ferry grows larger. It is a floating mountain of steel. The letters Walla Walla are painted on the stern. As we drift closer, the sheer scale of the vessel is intimidating. The car deck is open at the rear, but the ramp is raised. However, hanging off the starboard side, dangling just a few feet above the waterline, is a heavy rope and wood pilot's ladder. Someone deployed it. There, Lily points, her chest heaving. Aim for the ladder. We steer the Zodiac alongside the towering steel hull. I grab the thick, salt-crusted rope of the ladder, securing our small boat. Up you go, I tell her. She climbs the 20 feet to the open promenade deck with surprising speed. I follow, gritting my teeth against the blinding pain in my shoulder, using my legs to push myself up rung by rung until I tumble over the steel railing and collapse onto the teak deck. We are on the ferry. It is eerily quiet. The emergency generators are dead. We pick ourselves up and move through the passenger cabins. The rows of vinyl seating are empty. Half-finished cups of coffee and abandoned luggage litter the floor. The passengers must have panicked when the quake hit and the power died, crowding the lower decks or abandoning ship into the freezing water. We head straight for the forward stairwell, climbing toward the bridge. That's where I saw the SOS. I push open the heavy steel door to the bridge. The room is a wide, panoramic arc of reinforced glass, overlooking the bow of the ship and the smoking skyline of Seattle behind us. The control consoles are dark, and slumped against the navigation table, clutching a heavy, battery-powered emergency lantern, is a man in a white and blue Washington State Ferries uniform. "Hey," I say, stepping forward quickly. The man jerks awake, dropping the lantern. His face is pale, shining with cold sweat. A makeshift tourniquet made from a leather belt is wrapped tightly around his left thigh. The fabric of his trousers is soaked in dark, dried blood. "You're real," he whispers, his eyes wide. "I saw the raft. I didn't think you'd make it. I'm Marcus. This is my daughter, Lily. Are you the captain?" "First mate," he coughs, clutching his chest. "Miller. Captain's dead. The whole crew. The passengers. When the quake hit, a rogue wave slammed us into the pier. Then those things came out of the cracks." He shudders, a deep, terrified tremor. "They climbed right up the hull, slashed through the car deck like it was butter. I locked the bridge bulkheads. I've been bleeding out up here since yesterday. We need to get the engines running," I say, stepping up to the dead console. "The city is lost, Miller. They're terraforming the surface. When the sun goes down, they're going to swarm this bay. We need to move." Miller shakes his head weakly. "Main generators are flooded. The automatic starters tripped when the water breached the lower engine room. I'm a structural engineer," I tell him, my eyes scanning the complex array of buttons, throttles, and dials. "There has to be a manual pneumatic override. A black start sequence for the auxiliary diesels." Miller looks at me, a glimmer of hope cutting through his shock. "Engine control room. Deck 2, midship. If you can manually open the pneumatic air valves to the auxiliary diesels, you can bleed power back to the bridge. I can steer us out of here. Naval Base at Bremerton is transmitting a secure radio broadcast. The military is holding the peninsula. Bremerton, I repeat. It's a lifeline. A real, fortified military base. Okay. I'll get the power on. Dad, I'm going with you, Lily says, her voice firm. No. You stay here with Miller. Lock the bridge door behind me. If I get the power on, he needs you to help him with the comms. I don't wait for her to argue. I grab a heavy steel fire axe from a glass emergency case on the bulkhead and sprint out of the bridge. The descent into the bowels of the ferry is terrifying. Without power, the lower decks are pitch black. I use the flashlight from my phone, now at a critical 4%, to navigate the narrow, steel-grated corridors. Deck 2. Midship. I find the heavy, watertight door marked Engine Control Room. I spin the central wheel and pull it open. The room is a massive, cavernous space smelling of heavy marine diesel and grease. Two towering, house-sized diesel engines sit in the center, silent and cold. I find the pneumatic start panels. My eyes dart across the gauges. Air pressure, 300 psi. We have pressure in the reserve tanks. We just need to manually open the solenoid valves to kickstart the cylinders. I grab the heavy red release lever for the portside auxiliary engine. Tum. The entire ferry violently shudders. I lose my footing, crashing onto the steel grating, dropping the phone. The flashlight beam spins crazily before settling on the far wall. Tum. Another impact. It doesn't come from above. It comes from below. From the hull. Something is hitting the bottom of the ship. My blood runs cold. The water. The Leviathan. It didn't burn in the sun. It tracked our Zodiac. It followed the acoustic trail right to the ferry, and now it is battering the steel hull, trying to crack the metal shell like a walnut to get to the meat inside. The screech of tearing metal echoes through the engine room. The hull is thick, but that prehistoric monster crushed a steel ventilation pipe underground like it was a soda can. It won't hold forever. I scramble up, ignoring the blinding agony in my shoulder. I grab the red pneumatic lever with both hands. Come on! I scream. I throw my entire body weight backward. The lever groans, rusted from the salt air, and then violently clicks into the open position. A massive blast of compressed air hisses through the pipes. For 3 agonizing seconds, nothing happens. Then, deep inside the massive iron block of the diesel engine, a piston fires. Then another. Chug, chug, roar. The auxiliary generator violently shakes to life. A deafening, mechanical thunder fills the engine room. Overhead, the emergency incandescent lights flicker, buzz, and then snap on, flooding the room in harsh yellow light. I hear the radio crackle to life over the internal PA system. Miller is on the bridge. Tum. The hull shudders again. A massive dent appears in the steel plating near the starboard fuel tanks. It's trying to breach. I grab the intercom radio off the wall panel. Miller, the auxiliary is up. Give me the main drives. Engaging main drives now. Miller's voice crackles back. Hold on to something down there. The floor beneath my boots begins to vibrate with a terrifying intensity. The massive 20-foot bronze propellers at the rear of the ferry begin to turn. The Leviathan hits the hull again, but this time the impact is immediately followed by a horrific, deafening shriek that vibrates through the water and straight through the steel walls of the ferry. The propellers. The beast was attacking the stern. When Miller engaged the massive twin drives, thousands of horsepower of rotational force spun those bronze blades directly into the creature's unarmored, fleshy body. The water outside must be a churning blender of red. The screeching fades, replaced by the deep, steady, comforting thrum of the ferry's massive engines pushing us forward. The deck tilts slightly as Miller turns the massive vessel away from the ruins of Seattle, charting a course west toward Bremerton. I slowly slide down the vibrating steel wall of the engine room, letting the fire axe clatter to the grating. My phone screen flickers, flashes a low battery warning, and finally dies, leaving me in the steady, warm glow of the engine room lights. We are moving. We are alive. 20 minutes later, I climb back up to the bridge. Lily runs to me, wrapping her arms around my waist, burying her face in my chest. I hold her tight, burying my face in her ash-covered hair. Miller is slumped in the captain's chair, his hands gripping the wheel. He looks exhausted, pale, but there is a grim smile on his face. I look out the panoramic glass windows of the bridge. The sun is beginning its slow descent toward the western horizon, casting a long, golden light over the waters of the Puget Sound. Behind us, the city of Seattle is a towering inferno, wrapped in a shroud of black smoke. The gatekeepers will be coming out soon. Millions of them. They will finish tearing the city apart. They will claim the mainland. But out here, on the deep water, the air is clean. I look toward the west, toward the setting sun, toward Bremerton, and the faint, crackling military radio signal broadcasting on loop from the bridge's comms panel. The world we knew ended yesterday at 4:15 p.m. The earth broke open, and the monsters we thought only existed in nightmares crawled out to take it back. They have the numbers. They have the armor. But looking down at my daughter, feeling the steady hum of the massive steel engines beneath my boots, I know one thing for certain. We aren't going to make it easy for them.